Hello, everyone. My name is Paul, and welcome to the Stormkeep. I'm joined today by my co-storm hosts.
JJ here this evening.
MJ here.
All right, today we are going to be doing something a little bit more casual. Let's say we're not doing a Paul lecture series today. We're just having fun talking about what we would like to see in the Stormcast Battletome. We've had this idea for a video for a long time because we just talk about Stormcast all the time, and we always have these ideas for what would you do with this army, or like wouldn't it be cool if this unit did this, or if this was a new unit you could add to the army. We talk about this stuff all the time, so we thought we'd put them all together in a video and just have fun going through it. So unlike our normal videos, JJ and Ragonk haven't seen the slides on this one. They're going into this completely fresh, so this will be an interesting conversation piece. So just some notes at the start here. This is all just our personal opinion. We don't have any insider information. Murgank might. I don't know. We'll see.
No, I
don't. We don't know anyone at Games Workshop. We don't know if this is going to drive the design. We're just doing this for fun. We just like talking about this. And this is all based on purely an internal review of the army. So pretending that no other army in the game exists, just what would be cool about Stormcast, right? Just trying to flesh out the army, how we view it. And we really do like using all of our models. Like, it sucks that I can't find room for Vanquishers in a list, or that Vanguard Hunters aren't particularly very useful. I would really like to be able to use every model in the book, right? So that's my goal, personally. I don't know about you guys, but that's my goal with an army, is every single model becomes useful in some way. That would be the best case scenario. And sometimes to do that, you just need point changes, right? I'm not going to get into specifics now. You'll see it later in the video. But sometimes you need an entirely new ability. Sometimes units are just so bad that you have to change their rules. Other times you can just tweak some point costs and they become viable. Sometimes a storm host gets an entirely new ability, right? Like, it's not a surprise that we all think Anvils of the Heldenhammer is pretty bad. So that one might get focused on. And like I said, we haven't looked at these ahead of time. I had to look at them, last minute to put the slides together and everything, so we have something to record. But otherwise, we're going into this blank. We haven't talked about this ahead of time. We've just put our ideas together. So starting off, JJ, why don't you run us through these general changes for the army that you listed?
This has been a while since I submitted these, so sorry if I don't recall this that much. Yeah, so to start, one thing that we're always talking about in Discord is that our mobility options kind of suck. So especially with translocation being gone, we just need something to move our units up and give us a little bit more of a threat range. We do have units like Vanguard Paladors and Vanguard Hunters that use the what's it called, the Ride the Winds of Theric type ability. But honestly, Astral Templars is kind of not that good right now from what I've seen. Other than that, casting needs to be better, I think. Right now, the only usage I'm getting out of my casters is to buff units. We're not really potent when it comes to doing any sort of trickery on the field. And even when we're trying to do trickery or trying to buff our units, we're super easy to counter or dispel.
Yeah, it's always been disappointing to me that we don't have more offensive-oriented spells. Like, we don't have this big, like, cast value 9, deal a bunch of mortal wounds with a lightning kind of spell. You'd think that would fit really well in with the aesthetic. Especially with Krondys, right? Krondys has +3 to cast, and the only thing that he needs bonuses to cast on is his own spell, which is obviously designed with his bonus in mind. So, like, it doesn't really feel like you're getting a bonus to cast.
And like I said, we're just super easy to counter against. Like, you'll have this sort of battle plan in mind that you want to move your Dracoths forward and start buffing them with everything. But if you're playing against Seraphon, who have the amount of unbinds they do, well, you better start focusing on that slaying first, right?
Yeah, it's starting to feel like we just shouldn't use wizards. Like, if the Knight Incantor didn't have a Dispel Scroll, I probably wouldn't use any wizards in my army.
Yeah,
that's actually pretty fair. That's how I feel. I feel like we deal with most problems by killing them. Yeah. We don't really counter tricks with tricks. We counter tricks with death.
Yeah, I really like, in 2nd edition we had this battalion. God, what was it called? The Grand Conclave, I think. It was a Sacrosanct battalion that just used a bunch of Arcanums and Incantors. And while they were standing next to each other, they would like channel all their lightning together and then get bonuses to cast. And I thought that was really thematic and cool. And it's disappointing that we don't have a mechanic like that in this book.
Yeah, I agree. Actually, yeah, I like that ability too. I actually quite like cleansing phalanx, like the idea of like sequitors and evocators just like working in conjunction together.
The battalion that when you cast Empower on the sequitors, they also got to reroll hits.
Yeah, I thought that was like, that was that like all the Sacrosanct battalions like that were like really cool and thematic. And I feel like the loss of that, although like I don't regret War Scroll Battalion's been taken out of the game, is feel like like we basically our tricks are we just kill you, and we don't worry about what's on your War Scroll. We just worry about what your save characteristic is.
But I mean, let's be real here. At the same time, like with our new book, our units they do a lot of damage with the stats they have right now.
Oh, so for sure.
With
they're demigods. They're proper demigods now.
Yeah, with fulminators in particular, if you cast Celestial Blades on them, use the Combat Trail, they're going from deadly to overkill very easily.
No, agree. Yeah. I mean, what we do really well, so I'm happy about it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want us to be pillow-fisted and have no tricks.
So. Yeah, but that being said, like, on the note of more reliable casting, maybe give a Stormhost, like Celestial Warbringers or something like that, some extra potent casting, like some sort of avenue like that.
Yeah, Celestial Warbringer seems like a natural fit. If we had one Stormhost that could, once per turn reroll a cast, I don't think that would be overpowered at all. Considering you can just take a Master of Magic trait to reroll one cast per turn already, it's a really marginal benefit. I think that would be totally fine.
Yeah. Other things, I think we need. I think it'd be nice to have each Stormhost unlock some form of battle line option. We kind of. It almost seems like they were starting to do that, and then they just kind of ran out of ideas, so to speak.
Yeah, it does feel like they gave up halfway through. They thought of some really cool ones, right? Like Tempest Lords with Prosecutors, that's pretty cool. Dracots and Hammers of Sigmar are pretty cool, but then they're like, well, what do we do for Celestial Warbringers? And they just shrugged and left it there.
Yeah. And
I think Sacrosanct Battle Line for Celestial Warbringers would have been really nice. I don't know what Anvils would have done, but Celestial Warbringers supposedly has the most number of Sacrosanct chambers, so.
Okay. Then just one note in terms of models I want to see eventually. I want to see Lord Commander Gardas, goddammit.
Now, I have a question about this one. Do you want to see like a new Gardas so you can use old Gardas alongside new Gardas? Or would you rather have like this replaces the current Gardas model? I guess it's not really related to this army. It's more like a general question of how would you like to handle storyline progression and characters being represented through models?
I mean, realistically, what I want to see is a new sculpt, but in terms of rules-wise, that's a good question for me. I think it makes sense just to have him get a new set of rules.
Okay, because it is a new model, and it is cool, so I don't want to see it go away. Maybe they could do something like, if you have this Gardas, you can't use the other one.
Yeah, but at the same time, that's fair. What I'm more so saying is, I'm not expecting a Lord Commander Gardas anytime soon type thing. Obviously, we want to get mileage out of current Gardas because he is a Chad.
He's so good. Use him before he gets nerfed, folks. Abuse him. He's so strong.
Yep.
And he's fun, too. Like, it's fun to play a Castle Gardas list. For you, not for your opponent. All right, Ragonk, you had just a couple notes here in the general. You gave me like a big document and I had to sort out based on how I have this structured. So, don't go too in depth. Just stick to what's on the slide.
Cool. So I'd like to see Cycle of the Storm redesigned to essentially be like a discount version of Indrasta's ability. Basically, an Arcanum basically targets like a Paladin or like a Redeemer unit and then brings a model back, or like a Raptor or anything that is 3 wounds or less. I think that's like, it's not that broken. Andrasta already does like that in an aura, and targeting one unit and being able to do that would not be broken at all, in my opinion. The second thing I want is, Prosecutor Primes get extra attacks on special weapons. It's odd that they took that route and they took it away. It's not like we have any attack buffs or like huge amounts of buffs that we can really make Prosecutors troublesome. I don't understand.
I'm not ripping the arms off my guys.
Yeah, it's just weird that they went that route. I mean, I guess why, because like the instructions in the instruction booklet like has you building the prime with a hammer and shield.
Really?
That's the only explanation I can think of. Yeah.
Oh man, I see. The explanation I thought of was that I never checked the instruction booklet, but I remember that there's specifically a prime hammer hand, right? Like there's a sculpted hand that has the prime gauntlet, and because
Yeah.
like, and I assume that's the only reason they went with it. But I didn't know the instructions
Yeah.
actually tell you to use it.
Yeah, when you build a prime, it doesn't have you building it with a grand weapon. It has you building it. So I'm like, okay, that's probably why they did it. So
That's the
because
worst reason for anything I've ever heard.
yeah. So, but anyway, yeah, I want that to go away. Like that just seems silly that prosecutors would be the exception to like literally every other captain or sorry sergeant unit in the game. And as far as new units goes, I would really like a dual wielding berserker. I know liberators can currently like sort of be like that. Like you can build celestial vindicators and you can build like dual sword or dual hammer liberators, but let's be honest, nobody's taking liberators to deal massive amounts of damage. I want like a true sort of Stormcast, like dual blade wielding sort of blade lord kind of unit that is uh, just like chopping people up, and maybe they have a 4-up save or maybe even a 5-up save. Like maybe like they can decrease their save to a 5-up or something and get a lot of attacks when they go in.
Yeah, that would be cool. The Celestial Vindicators used to have abilities like that where
Artifacts.
you could add one to your attacks, but you have -1 to save rolls. So I'm
Mhm.
picturing like basically Liberators, but with you know how like the Ordinator has like buff arms and you can see them. Picture like
Mhm.
bare arm Liberators, right? Maybe they've been reforged one too many times and they're like on their last legs and they're like, okay, this is it for me. Like I'm going out.
Yeah. So
That'd be
yeah,
sick.
basically, yeah, sort of that opportunity cost where you can like reduce their save characteristic for a bunch of attacks. And lastly, I'd like to see like a Stormcast Dreadnought. Like we keep hearing about like all these Stormcast souls that are becoming like way too dangerous because they've been reforged so many times and they're becoming more like golems. So why not like put one in like just like a giant like golden like body, like sort of like Annihilators, but I'm aiming more like in terms of like the size of Necropolis Stalkers from OBR. 50 millimeter base, and they just like lumber around the battlefield, just like killing things.
Yeah. Hey,
So, especially
Nagash
because
Nagash has a couple good ideas now and then.
yeah, yeah, and especially now that Grungni is working with Sigmar, I feel like that should not be far off. Like
Yeah.
like a golem that has like a crossbow in one hand and a giant mace in another. On a 50 or 60 millimeter base. I feel like that'd be a cool unit.
Just don't even give him hands. Just give him hammers. Where
Yeah,
from the elbow up is
yeah,
just a hammer.
Yep, kind of like the Gothazar Harvester doesn't have hands. He has like those two hammers he like lumbers around on, basically.
Yeah, I
Sorry,
forgot
two
about that.
maces. Yeah,
Yeah, there
it's
you go.
like
Just,
that.
just Harvester, but a Stormcast.
Yep.
That'd be sick.
Yep, that's all I have.
All right, I went a little crazy on the new units because I've been thinking about this for a long time and it was good to finally put it all down. So general changes, like JJ, like you said, every Stormhost needs a battle line choice. From a gameplay perspective, that just feels right. Either like 2 of them get a choice or all of them, but not like what are we at, like 5 or 6 get battle line choices right now? Just make it all of them.
1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, at least 4, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, just make it all of them. And I'm sure we can think of some cool ones as we go through this video that would work for all of them. I also am not happy with how Cycle the Storm works right now. It's a really bad ability, and my idea was a little different than yours. I like yours a lot. My idea was make it work like the version from before the errata, but only once per game per Arcanum, and a unit can only benefit from it once per game as well. So if you have 3 Arcanums, they can all use their ability once each to save a unit from infinite damage, right? But then the unit that it's used on can never get that ability again, right? So you can't like save a same Stardrake 3 times in a row with the same with 3 different Arcanums, right? I think that would be fine.
Okay, yeah, I could see that.
And a lot of our units have really... Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, because this is a bit of a spoiler, but I'm sure people have seen what the new mount trait for Griffins in Cities of Sigmar is. It basically stops. Basically, when they die on a 2-up, they get back up, and it only happens to them once per game. I think something like that once per game. Yeah, it wouldn't be broken at all.
Yeah, even make it a 2-up to activate or something, right? Like something reliable but not guaranteed. That way, there's always a chance for failure because it is a dice game, right? So that could be another restriction on it because maybe it was too powerful before, and maybe we can bring back the flavor and cool factor of it without breaking the game. And the last general change I want to see is a lot of our units have really big bases and they don't reinforce well because they have 1-inch attacks. So I want to see 3-inch cohesion. It's a really cool concept on Drakes and Prosecutors, and I'd like to see it on units like Dracolines. I think that would make them a lot better and more viable.
I agree. Yeah, I bet you we're going to see that with the Nurgle flies pretty soon.
Mm-hmm. Yep, they're a prime candidate for it. They've got these huge bases, and you definitely want to bring them in squads of 6.
Mm-hmm.
So new units. I've been kicking these ideas around for a few years, and here they are. First one, when I saw the ballista back in Soul Wars, my first thought was, okay, so where's the steam tank? Where's the heavenly cannon? Right? Where's the thing that just belches lightning across the table? And it still eludes me. I still don't have that, which is quite frustrating. Really like that concept. I feel like we don't have enough war machines. You know, we got the Ordinator and the ballista, and that's it. We need more of that stuff.
Yeah, you won't find me disagreeing.
And then I really like the idea of like an Inquisitor infantry that's like really priestly, and they use like, picture the Lord Exorcist except with like heavy weapons. Instead of being a caster, he's a melee focused guy. I just want that as a unit. They just go around and messing up wizards and priests and stuff.
I can't recall exactly. Aren't like Sequitors sort of like the Inquisition, like the Sacrosanct Chamber? Aren't they the Inquisition?
I don't know. I know they're the Redeemer units in the Sacrosanct, right? So they're like the
Right.
shield wall, the front line, they get in front of stuff, and they channel magic, like a minor form of magic. They're not full blown wizards, but they can channel magic into their weapons and shield. And so can the Cascaders.
Right.
The Cascaders also channel magic, which I think they still have that ability in 3rd edition, but nobody uses Cascaders right now.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, I guess like a proper Inquisitor retinue unit would be, that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, like picture Praetors, but they are Inquisitors, right?
Oh, like a witch hunter squad. Yeah, I get you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Instead of protecting heroes, they go around sniping wizards. You know, give them crossbows, give them stakes and things like that. That would just be cool. I think that would be cool.
Mm-hmm. I think we're more likely to see that in COS, but yeah, I get your point.
Yeah. If we didn't have the Veritant, I wouldn't even think about it. I think, yeah, just keep that as like a Cities of Sigmar thing. But you know what? We're stealing everything from cities. We're just robbing the grave here. Next up, I want to see like a big, heavy war beast, right? Because like everything in the Stormcast is really lean and muscular. There's nothing like just thick, just a huge mass on the table, right? So I think like I want a war hippo, man. That's what I want. Yeah. And then like you could put either like a hero on top of it who could be, I don't know, he'd have a really big lance or something, or you could have some artillery on top of it. Both could work.
Yeah.
I think that would be cool. And you can even have like smaller versions of the hippo. Like let's say you have like a big hippo as a centerpiece, and then you have like rhino cavalry, you know, like really like picture annihilators on mounts. How sick would that look?
Yeah. Well, what would the model size be? I think 2, because they're just that
just
good.
One. Just one.
Just one. Okay.
Yeah, can't be reinforced. Single model. It's on a chariot size base. Just one model.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah. And then speaking of chariot, I want to see like chariot heroes. I used to play Tomb Kings back in Warhammer Fantasy, and I want to see a Stormcast chariot hero. I don't know why they missed that opportunity. It seems so obvious.
Yep, definitely. Like a Lord Celestant on chariot.
Oh yeah. Put him in Thunderstrike armor. See what that looks like.
Yeah. Oof. Major Rome vibes over there. I like that.
That'd be sick. And I want to see a Lord Commander for every Stormhost. I know people are going to complain that, oh, it's too much like Space Marines with their Primarchs. Like, I don't care. I don't care. I don't want like individual units from every Stormhost. I don't want to see 5 different Stormcast books within the next 5 years for different Stormhosts. I just want at least one special character for each Stormhost that we got.
So let's be real here. How wicked are the Primarch models?
They're pretty sick. The 30k ones especially are fantastic.
Yeah.
They really capture like the essence of each chapter, and I just want that cool factor brought over to the army that we play.
Yeah, I don't know how I would feel about Stormhost supplements. I feel like that'd be,
I think that's a bit too far.
Yeah.
But and I would like this for every subfaction in the game, by the way. I think subfactions not having their own unique character is really lame. Every subfaction should have a unique character.
Mm.
And it doesn't have to be like where it completely defines it. It could just be like an aspect of it that it's really good at, you know? So maybe like if they were to do another named character for the Hallowed Knights, it could double down on only the faithful, and it could be like when a unit is using only the faithful, it gets double its normal attacks or something. Not balanced, obviously, but like just an idea. So it's Gardas would be the defensive one, and this other guy could be the offensive one.
And I feel like they don't tend to do that for a lot of other factions, because it's like if you look at like OBR, for instance, there's like 3 unique characters by now, and none of them are like any other but Mortis Praetorians, because like Mortis Praetorians take up most of the narrative. So.
Yeah. Let's see some other stuff, man. I want to see every subfaction in the game have some amount of relevance in the story and in the gameplay.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so then I want to see a devoted to Sigmar auxiliary chamber. It's a hard word. So this would just be like the flagellants from Cities of Sigmar that they cut for no reason. I want to see that as an auxiliary chamber for Stormcast, not as part of Cities of Sigmar. I want it specifically to be like mortals that want to prove themselves to Sigmar, that they are worth reforging, right? So they go on these crusades and they're willing to fight and die and just hoping that they get reforged. So you can take like all those cool units from Warhammer Fantasy and mix them in with Stormcast, and it would create, instead of just like an army of high power, like power armor and power weapon dudes, you'd have normal dudes sprinkled throughout it, you know? And I think that would be really cool.
Yeah, I think so. I would like that.
And I really love the old War Altar of Sigmar, so I'm thinking they could bring that back as like a new revamped version of it, where instead of having this weird statue, it's like a chained up lightning geist. You know, like when Stormcast get reforged too many times and they go a little wrong and crazy, and then the Sacrosanct have to go round them up. But they've described that in the books as a lightning geist, which is just like a lightning soul flying around messing stuff up. So I would love it if you could just chain one of those things on top of a platform, and then these like borderline suicidal devoted to Sigmar are pushing this thing into battle. That would be a sick model.
Ooh, I like that idea.
Yeah.
Honestly, if I look at the art for the Dawnbringer Crusades, that might very well be a possibility.
Yeah, I'd love that.
They're hauling in the art.
Let's see. I also want to see the prosecutors, like the angel dudes. Those are my favorite. Period. In all the Stormcast, everything with those wings is my favorite model. So Celestant Prime, prosecutors, everything else. That's the order. So I just want to see more dudes like that. So what if we had like heavy armor angels?
Ooh, I'd like that. Like a unit of 2, like Morghast kind of.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, a really elite thing like that. Could go the opposite direction. You could make like heavily armored ones, right? Like a Redeemer prosecutor unit, because we've seen Angelos. We know they're a light skirmisher. We haven't seen like Extremis would be cool.
Yeah,
an Extremis prosecutor.
I could even see Sacrosanct prosecutors.
Yep. Oh yeah, you'd have the robes flowing down, and you can have parchment and everything coming out from them. That would be sick. And then the last thing I really want to see is I want to see more Vanguard units, because they have probably the second best aesthetic in the entire army, which is like trackers and rangers. They've got like pulleys and hooks and everything all around them. Like they're ready to, they're roughnecks, right? And I would like to see a Vanguard Redeemer unit, because I really like the Fire Slayers, and they have these sling shields that they throw at the enemy. And I think that kind of idea would work really well for Stormcast too.
Like a light shield, like something you can... Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, they can just dispose of it once they get into melee and then pick up a second weapon.
Yeah, it's like those small shields that gladiators used to have.
Yes.
Like, I can see that.
Yeah, like a buckler.
Yeah.
That'd be sick. All right, MJ, we're talking about enhancements now, so we're back to gameplay here. Run us through the changes you want to see.
Oof, I hate our command traits. That's the general mood of this
Hate is such
page.
a strong word.
Yes, I do hate them, because like they just oh my god, they're like the most niche of the niche things. But anyway, let's get started. Shock and Awe was always like not that relevant, even when it was just part of our allegiance ability, and I don't know why they had to like make it even more irrelevant by making it a command trait. But it should, if they're gonna do that, if they're gonna say, okay, take this command trait and there's an opportunity cost to it because you're not taking something else, then I want it to last till the end of the turn. Or something like a cool thing would be at the end of the battle round. And the reason I say end of the battle round, because then it would have this like cool little game thing where you don't want to make the most use of it. You really do want to go first, and you want to drop at the top of a round so it lasts like till your opponent's turn. So that'd be really cool for like an Alpha Strike, like Annihilator list to have. Staunch Defender, I just want Shieldless Isolation trigger automatically. Like you shouldn't have to roll like a 3-up for it. Like it should just be like if you're wholly within 12 of the general, Shield of Civilization just triggers when somebody charges you.
Yeah, I don't think that would be too strong.
Yeah. And Celestial Menagerie, we already talked about this like previously and even on like Warhammer Weekly, but yeah, I think Hero Monsters, because I think it punishes things like the Toleron and the Night Draconis for no reason. Envoy of the Heavens, I think it lasts right now till the end of the phase. I want it to last till the end of the turn. So it's like, you know what I mean? Your opponent really has to like consider if they have some shooting. It's like, oh, if I shoot this Vindictor block, like 15 Vindictors, I might end up giving them a 2-up save in combat. So do I want that before I engage them or no? So I think that would these would still be like niche abilities. I'm not sure it would still be played, but it would make them like useful enough to where I'd consider playing them.
Envoy would be really good. I would take this Envoy, I think. Well, just given how bad our other command traits are, I would pick Envoy right now. So
yeah. And then finally, we have. I just want a new artifact. Maybe like this could be a Stormcast artifact. Could also be just like a general artifact. Rosary of Faith. Make something a priest. Make it like you can do one prayer with it. I don't think that'd be broken at all. Arcane Tome already exists. I don't think the ability to do prayers would be too bad. I mean,
yeah.
I'd rather have it be a Stormcast artifact because not every book has prayers in it.
Well,
like
there are universal prayers.
Yeah, there are universal. You're right. Yeah, and it's like when you look at like Khorne would make use of this too, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, because there's no
Khorne doesn't do spells.
Khorne can take an Arcane Tome, right? No, it specifies you can't use. Oh, how does that work? I remember looking into this. Anyway, doesn't matter. But yeah, you could.
Yeah.
There's universal prayers, right? People use curse, people use heal, and people use guidance. So I think that would be a good artifact.
Yep.
Could be universal. Could be just Stormcast.
Yep. So that's basically what I want. I want Rosary of Faith because I feel like more than our spells, like you said, like if the Knight Incanter didn't have the Dispel Scroll, I probably wouldn't take a Wizard at all. But I do feel like our prayers are really, really good. So I want to take 2 of them, but I just don't find the space for them. But I totally take this artifact over like Arcane Tome on my Imperator if I could.
Yeah, I would too. Divine Light is really good. Blessed Weapons is really good. Even just having another translocation would be really good.
Yeah.
And the only model that really has very reliable prayers is the Lord Relictor, who's already a priest. So I don't think this would be as powerful as adding a Relictor to your army.
Yeah, agree.
So I think armies would still take the Relictor, and then they would find room for a second priest prayer somewhere.
Yep.
And then the enhancement to get extra prayers becomes a lot better.
It makes, especially with things like even guide or curse. I think not bad. Very good prayers.
Curse on when you get curse on something and then attack it with fulminators, it goes from overkill to overkill plus.
Yep, agree. Like curse would. I want to say this and we'll discuss this when we get to War Scrolls. But it's like curse would make Vanquishers good actually.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. If they had the hit 6 mortal wound thing, it fits with the idea of them like decapitating people. That mechanic's always been done as like if you roll 6, you do a mortal wound, that kind of thing. So it makes sense for them to have that.
Yeah, so it'd be like really nice to just pair a bunch of Vanquishers with the curse ability. So
yeah, that'd be cool, man. I would definitely stick that on a Torlon. I would stick it on a Night Draconis. Maybe even a Stormdrake.
Yeah, even a Stormdrake. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, let's hope we get it, man. Maybe it'll be in the next battle plan pack, battle pack, whatever they call it.
General's Handbook. No, I don't even.
So I had some similar ideas to you. My first one, I also opted for a complete redesign of Shock and Awe. Instead of being -1 hit, I made it that you just can't be picked by a missile weapon until the end of the turn. Because one of my big beefs with Shock and Awe is that before -1 hit was it was only for melee, and now that we have Unleash Hell as a thing in the game, it feels like but that's already -1 hit. So how much value am I really getting out of Shock and Awe? It's just for the melee. So if you're going to make it a command trait, if you're going to make it really niche, if you're going to have all these stipulations like the general has to be on the battlefield, it's only for that one turn. Just make it complete immunity to shooting weapons until the end of that turn. So no Unleash Hell. No abilities that activate shooting in the combat phase, like for example, if you're fighting a Khorne Skull Cannon, none of that stuff. I think that is a lot more interesting.
I actually like that. You can't Unleash Hell on this unit if it landed this turn.
Yep, exactly.
That's pretty good. Yeah.
Staunch Defender, I went a bit of a different direction than you. I just don't like the ability. I don't care. Shield of Civilization doesn't matter to me. It can be good if you stack up a bunch of dudes together and then somebody charges, whatever. I just don't care about that. I would rather see in Broken Realms Marathi, they had a battalion where if you used, I think it was Retributors, then they got the same ability that the Liberators got. They got the Shield of Civilization ability. So I thought, bring that back. Just if you have a Stormkeep Paladin unit, it gains that ability as if it was a Redeemer. So it would count as 3 models on an objective, and it would have the charge ability, Shield, that does D3 mortal wounds.
Huh. Yeah, I like that. That's pretty interesting. Yeah.
And I don't think it would be overpowered because Stormkeeps cannot use Scions of the Storm to put Grandhammers into play. So this is really an ability that's for foot-slogging Paladins, which makes them more viable outside of Scions of the Storm armies. So I really don't think this would be overpowered at all, because by the time Retributors get up to an objective, it probably is going to be round 3 by that point.
Yeah. I mean, 4-inch moves, good lord. Yeah.
You'd have to banner them, you'd have to translocate them, but the fact that you have to do that and you're not doing it on a different unit might be enough to keep it in check. But it seems better. I like stuff that opens up list building opportunities, so I like that. Envoy of the Heavens, I had the same idea, lasts until the end of the turn, until the end of the phase. And Menagerie, same idea, hero monster instead of Behemoth. These seem like really simple changes that they could implement tomorrow if they wanted to.
It's pretty obvious, and it wouldn't even be like broken or anything.
Envoy might legitimately be broken. It could, because if it could be broken, yeah. Because if you're trying to whittle down a unit and you have like a mix of, let's say your army is like 60-40 in terms of melee and shooting, all of a sudden that shooting turns into a liability for your melee. So it could be too strong because of how much armor stacking we have, but I'd rather see how strong it ends up being instead of hoping it doesn't.
Would you say, okay, I'd like to say it's not too strong, because then you would make sure instead of like trying to whittle something down piecemeal, you would try to just like kill it in one swing.
Yeah, maybe you'd have to put like some limitation on it that only one unit can benefit from it at a time. So that like units could, so the enemy could play around it, be like, oh, I'm going to kill a model over here. Do you want to activate Envoy? No? Okay, then that unit can't benefit from it. Like you get one chance to activate it per turn,
Yeah, I wouldn't be mad at that. Yeah. That sounds like a good way to balance.
And then I went through our artifacts because they're mostly junk, like really bad, right? Like just horrifically awful. So I thought, okay, well, let's make them actually useful. Blade of Heroes, instead of just re-rolling hit rolls against heroes and I think monsters too, it also re-roll wounds. Suddenly, that's a really, really huge boost to your accuracy. But none of the generic Stormcast heroes are punchy enough to even take advantage of this, I think.
I think you're right. I don't think. Yeah, other than maybe, unless you want to take Stardrakes or like Celestian on Dracoth.
Well,
that's like the most punchy one.
If it affected the mounts, yeah. But no.
It doesn't.
The Lord Celestian on Stardrake has pretty bad attacks. 3 attacks, rend 2, I think 3 damage apiece or 2 damage apiece, something like that. Like it's not great.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, none of our heroes are like scary or have scary amount of attacks, or none of our non-unique heroes anyway.
Yeah, exactly. All the ones that are good fighters, like maybe Lord Celestin on foot is a good fighter, I would say, which is ironic. Lord Celestin on Dracoth is okay, but they're not as good as just bringing units, right? So there's no point. Hammer of Might right now, and activates on wound rolls. Make it activate on hit rolls. Like, is that really broken? it's such a
So here's what I think. Like, I think in general they need to move away from hit rolls activating a bunch of effects like this. Like in general, like okay. I think like Lumineth would be way more balanced if the mortal wounds were on wound rolls.
I hear that, but this is like an artifact that affects non-punchy heroes, right? And the opportunity cost is you're not taking the Blade of Heroes and you're not taking the Fang of Dracothian, which frankly I like a lot more. I just wanted to make this better. Like if you ended up picking this artifact, you wouldn't feel like a complete moron. Because it's so bad, man. Okay, yeah. It's so bad right now.
That's fair.
Fang of Dracothian, I thought let's just throw out the design because it's so bad and you have to keep track of it and it's just bad. So I thought let's redesign it, and I made it so that no bonuses to save rolls or ward abilities are allowed against this weapon. So the only thing your opponent has is their naked save.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
So it doesn't increase your rend, right? It does cut through wards, which is good, but if you're fighting a unit, they might not necessarily have either of those, right? So it is a situational thing. Granted, the situation's pretty common right now because everybody's stacking save rolls and everybody has wards these days. But if the meta
Actually,
ever
it wouldn't be
shifts-
that broken. Are you aware with the Null Myriad?
Of the what?
Are you aware with Ossiarch Bone Reapers have this subfaction called
Oh,
Null
yes.
Myriad?
Yeah. I know. I had that idea. Yeah, go ahead, though.
Yeah, that's the exact idea. You just don't get save rolls against attacks made from that weapon.
So this is a little bit worse because you still get your
Yeah.
save. This is just no bonuses to save rolls.
Yep. Yeah, no, I like this one.
Yeah. Drake Scale Armor, I made it so that it's like the errata I've been talking about. Just make it activate on any damage other than 1. That's not even a buff or nerf necessarily, just a clarification on how it should work, I think. Because the fact that it does or doesn't operate on D3 depending on where you are in rolling your saves, it's just dumb. So just make it clear. Any damage characteristic other than 1. Is it D3? Okay, you get to reroll because that's not 1.
Yep. That I agree with. I don't know why they would leave that ambiguous like that.
The Amulet of Silvered Sigmarite, I made it also so that your opponent can't reroll wounds. Pretty simple. Right now, just your opponent can't reroll hits against you. That's being phased out of the game, it seems like, based on the first couple Battletomes we've seen in 3rd edition. So I don't even know how strong of an effect this would be. But if it's... just make it more useful. It's so niche already. Make it more useful. And then I really don't like the Thunderous Presence mount trait, which is Knight Draconis only. Instead of doing a rampage on a 3-up, you can pick a unit, and then that unit can't get any commands in the Battle Shock phase. So that's super niche. I think we could just replace it with something a lot more fun. So I made this one here. It's called Pack Leader. It can only be taken by Griff Charger. And what it says is, while this model is on the battlefield, friendly Stormcast units can add 1 to the attack's characteristic of any melee weapon with the word Beacon Claw in it. So that's the mount on the Aquilor, the Arcanum, the Imperitance Dog, the Varenton's Dog, the Castellan's Dog, Aether Wings, surprisingly, the Chariot mount, the Palador mount, Griffhounds, and even the Long Strike Alpha with his little Raptor. All of those would get +1 attack if you took this trait.
Wow, okay, yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Feels like Dracolines with the Pack Alpha trait.
Yep, pretty much exactly the same thing, except for our bird buddies. And I think that would open up a lot of room for Aquilor and Paladors to really shine. Chariots get a little damage boost. I think that would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind that. That's actually pretty... that sounds fun. That sounds neat.
Be a new playstyle for sure, just popping out all over the place.
Yeah, I think it would... I think having to invest resources in making mediocre units strong is fine. Right? Like, taking a unit from like good to great, if you invest resources into it, I think that's a fine thing for a game to have. And that's kind of missing right now from our Battletome. Like, our base strength is almost 100% in our War Scrolls.
Yeah.
All right, Mergonk, you had 2 Stormhosts here you really focused on. Let's run through what you wanted to see.
Battleline Evocators for Celestial Warbringers. We already discussed how we want Battleline options for every Stormhost. I can agree with that, but mainly, like, it's sad to see like Evocators sort of being like this Paladin unit that don't really have any space to make them Battleline, whereas that seems like the big push that they made in this book to make all the quote-unquote Paladin units like Fulminators and other like Retributors and so on Battleline. So I feel like this would just be a really easy fix, and it's a pitch battle profile fix. They could do this like in December if they really wanted to.
Yeah. No, the fact that it's a pitch battle profile thing makes it, I think, really likely that it could happen.
Yeah.
No War Scroll changes required at all.
Yeah, and this would like automatically like open up a lot of options, like being able to just take. I mean, I do think like Evocators are slightly overcosted, but like being able to take them as battle line and not having to take that Redeemer tax with it, I think it would be really, really good. And as for Annals of the Elden Hammer, I just want Deathly Aura to not be like wasting people's time.
Just like a real ability,
other than being
please.
bad. It's just like a waste of time. It's just like, oh, great, now I'm engaged across 4 fronts. I got to roll like 8d6 to before I can like start combat. Like, no, that's just like, why am I wasting people's time like that? So just make it so like you pick a unit at the start of combat, and that unit gets scared because Andals are really scary with their death masks, and that unit has a -1 to hit.
Yeah,
it's not even that broken. Like, come on, it's like a pseudo roar when you think about it.
Yeah, so. Beautiful. Pretty much right on the same page with you here. Let's start with my thoughts for Hallowed Knights. I think it would be really cool if the Hallowed Knights had battle line Praetors, because the Hallowed Knights are all about martyrs and protecting their heroes, and they've got this crusade vibe. and Praetors are very like imperial. They follow around their heroes. I think this would be a natural fit. And I don't think it would be broken in the slightest because Praetors are lousy damage for 165 points. And frankly, not a lot of our heroes need them. So being able to bring them as battle line opens up hero hammer opportunities, which seems to fit nicely with Gardas and his ability to buff specifically heroes with Saintly Assault. I think this is just a natural fit.
That's actually pretty neat. Yeah, I didn't think of that. Yep. Wow, good one.
Celestial Warbringers, the ability is okay. It's like easy to keep track of. I don't like things that you have to keep track of throughout the game, but this one's easy because it's only once per phase, right? So that's fine, but it's not that powerful, and it's not a powerful enough ability to justify picking the Stormhost right now. So I think a little bit more power and a little bit more flavor is what this Stormhost needs, and I landed at the exact same spot you did, Battle Line Evocators and Dracolines. That would be perfect. If you read the fluff for Celestial Warbringers, just the one page they have in the Battletome, they talk about how they have more Evocators than everybody else. They're just like lousy with Evocators, you know?
They really love their lightning zap.
Yeah. And I like, a little off topic, but I know I've definitely talked on this podcast about how Celestial Warbringers used to be the like horn-blowing, super joyous, ready for crusading kind of Celestial Warbringers. And in second edition, they became like weird spiritual seers and magicians and all that, and they kind of combine the two of those ideas together in third edition because they know when they're going to die, and that makes them really joyous and raucous, and they just embrace life. Like when they're not crusading and fighting, they're just like the happiest of all the Stormhosts. They totally chill with normal people. So I feel like they've blended those two aspects of them together, and it's nice that one of the Stormhosts isn't this like tragic, grim, dark monstrosity like all the other ones are turning into.
Yeah, I never thought of it that way. Yeah, that's really good because I saw a little bit of like lore in the Battletome. It's a Celestial Warbringer like mage or whatever, reassuring a City of Sigmar unit that they're not going to die today.
Yeah, he knows.
Yeah.
And especially the Celestial Vindicators, man, they're just getting more and more grimdark every single edition.
Yeah.
It's tragic, man. They are just becoming Debbie Downers. Even the Knights Excelsior are like harsh, like they're borderline evil. They're so lawful, but they're not lawful nice, right? And but they're stoked, like they're okay doing it. They're not upset about it. Whereas the Celestial Vindicators are like, oh, it's so hard to be so full of rage all the time. You have to go through a magic portal and come out the other side, and they're starting to just turn into Grey Knights from 40k, right? Like it's really bizarre.
I was gonna say World Eaters.
Okay, yep, and they're like decimated.
I mean, they almost got wiped out. So let's be honest.
Yeah, fine. It's fine for one Stormhost to be like that, and I'm so glad that they have at least the Celestial Warbringers that are around who are like, hey, no, things are great, man. We're gonna win this war. We're gonna take back the realms. I seen it. I know where I'm gonna be when it happens. So it's a good time.
Yeah, it's like Phoenix Guard, but like not broody.
Yeah, like they can talk about it. They have a good time with it.
Yeah,
and that's a good twist because normally whenever there's like a story about a character who can see their own fate, they like get really depressed. These guys are like, nope, this is great.
Always tragic.
Yeah. Celestial Vindicators, they should get Battle Line Chariots, right? They're a melee unit. Charge in. That seems fine. Yeah. I can't think of a better one, really. It has to be a melee unit.
I agree. Yeah.
And it can't be really something that the other Stormhosts have, so I can't think of anything better than the Chariot. It fits with their idea of running into them with blades. It kind of takes them in a bit of a different direction than what they've been, which has always been they didn't really have a definition before in terms of units, right? Like, Knights Excelsior have the Paladins. What are the Vindicators supposed to be? Make them about chariots. Make them about speed, right? We don't have a go-fast Stormhost. It would be cool if there was one.
What'd be really hilarious if they like actually did something like Vindicators can't take shooting units, because it's like in the lore they're just so mad that they have to like constantly keep chanting prayers in order to like stay in control and not just like charge all out at the enemy.
Yeah. And
so, like I'm like, how do you even have shooting units in your freaking army?
Well, Justicars are supposedly like they hate chaos so much that they can see it. So maybe that, the focused anger, right? Like when you're really mad, you squint. That's how they shoot. Okay, Anvil's the Helden Hammer. You knocked it out of the park with your explanation. The Stormhost ability is too many dice rolls and it slows the game down. All right, it's unlikely to activate because you have to roll 2d6 over bravery, and there's so many bravery 10 armies in the game right now. It's just like a waste of time for the most part. We don't have any bravery modifiers, which you'd think if we have an ability like this, we should, especially because we used to, but we don't. You have to bring allies to do it. And even when you do finally get it off, after all that bookkeeping, you have to activate it, and it doesn't do much. It stops 2 wounds from coming in, which maybe could save a model, right? Like,
yeah, it's just saying it's just like a pseudo cycle of the storm. Like, oh, okay, I saved the Liberator.
Yeah, it does nothing against shooting, does nothing against any real damage, and you have to keep track of it across so many different units. It's such a pain in the butt in so many ways, and it's weak, which is the worst combination that you can have. So I actually went a little bit further with the ability. I made it a little more usable than yours. Yours was like in the combat phase, pick a unit, it has -1 hit. I went a little bit further. I said at the end of the charge phase, pick an enemy unit within 6 inches of any friendly Anvil's of the Helden Hammer unit. That unit must subtract 1 from hit rolls and its bravery until the end of the turn. So the bravery thing really doesn't matter, but it's like a nice little bit of flavor in there.
Yeah, I'm not mad at that. Like, yeah, like that's fine. I mean, it's just something just like that's automatic that I don't have to waste, a minute rolling dice for. Like, yeah.
Yep, nice and simple. Pick a unit, lasts until the end of the turn, done. Don't have to keep track of it, don't have to roll, don't have to slow the game down. Easy. And impactful, too. I think this is actually a very impactful ability. -1 from hit rolls from 1 unit is huge.
Honestly, if they just made it like Mortis Praetorians and be like, every time you're within 3 of an Anvils of the Helden Hammer unit, you're -2 to bravery, like, I would have taken that. Like, that would have just been fine.
That would be fine, too. Yeah, because that really, it does impact a lot of units. Going from 7 to 5 bravery is a big deal for a lot of armies. And the last thing I would do for Anvils, the second thing, I guess, Battle Line Castigators. I thought Anvils, they did a lot during the Soul Wars, and I don't want to give them also Battle Line Evocators, and Sequitors are already Battle Line, so I thought Battle Line Castigators. That way you could double reinforce the unit, and you can empower it, and get a lot of value out of it. So it promotes using Evocators indirectly, because you're going to have these Battle Line Castigator squads.
Okay, I can see that. Sure.
I couldn't think of it.
Yeah, I like that idea.
It feels like...
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, I couldn't think of, like... I just don't tend to think of Castigators as Battle Line. Like, it just doesn't occur to me. But, like, given our conversation about how everyone should have Battle Line, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. If you got to give them something. And I think this would improve both Castigators and Evocators and give them more use. Because, like, Dracoths probably wouldn't be as good as they are right now if they weren't Battle Line and Hammers of Sigmar.
No.
They would be fine, but not, like, this amazing thing that everybody's losing their mind over.
Yep.
And I don't think Castigators would get there because they're still, 18-inch Ren 2 shooting but 1 damage. I don't think it would be crazy. All right, so let's go into specific unit-by-unit changes of what we want to see here. So we can talk about what we changed, but we can also talk about what we didn't change. And I think that could also be interesting. So for Liberators, you guys had no changes for this unit. You guys think this is perfect, right? Does that sound about right?
I think Liberators are fine. Yes, I think they finally found a good, you could say a good balance point, or like a good place for them to be, where they're this defensive anvil. So I don't really have any complaints now.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're good where they are. They could probably use some form of improvement. I just can't say what that form of improvement is.
Well, where I landed, defensively, I think they're perfect. 115 points for 5 of these models is great, It's such a good war scroll that I can't see them ever reducing the points as we go further into the edition, because a 3-up save all the time on 10 wounds for 115 points is phenomenal. The only thing I would change with this unit is, because the kit supports it, the kit does come with 2 grand weapons. So I thought, what if Liberators could take 2 grand weapons? Now, that might be too much if they also get to wear shields, and nobody really uses the dual weapon option. So what if you had this offensive version of a Liberator who could give up the shield in exchange for 2 grand hammers and an extra attack with the regular weapons? So it fits. It's in the kit. I think that would be cool. I still think people wouldn't use it. The shields are just so much better, right? You just got to use the shields.
I mean, the thing is, at that point, why would anyone ever pick Vanquishers? I feel like they would never do that just if they want to keep Vanquishers relevant. Because I feel like that would make Liberators strictly better.
We'll get to that. We'll get to Vanquishers. So in that situation, Liberators, they'd still be worse than Sequitors in terms of offense and defense, because Sequitors would be a 4-up, Liberators would be a 4-up. Liberators would have 2 grand weapons, while Sequitors would have 3, right? Sequitors could then also channel to get a 5-up board in combat. So in that situation, it's just like I don't think anybody would use it, right? The reason is it just fits with the kit, and for narrative reasons, maybe you don't want, maybe you want dual wielding liberators to matter, you know? So nice narrative option,
Sure.
I think. Sequiturs,
Sure.
we're pretty much all aligned here, right? 130 points for Sequiturs, that seems perfect.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I think put them in contest with the Vindictors, and I think you got a serious contender there.
Yeah, like if you had a choice between a 5-up ward in combat or a 3-up save for the same points, but one of the
do I want Mortal Wounds or do I want Grand Hammers? It's like,
Grand
that's like
Hammers,
a legit choice.
definitely.
Yeah.
Grand Hammers, they're so good.
Yeah.
No, JJ,
well, they reinforce differently, right? So like none of them. So Sequiturs don't have 2-inch reach. So like you have to think about it. It's like Vindictors have reinforceability. They have Mortal Wounds. Sequiturs have Grand Hammers and 5-up ward. So
Sequiturs do fight well single reinforced because you can put all the Grand Hammers up front.
Sure, but that's, I don't know if I'd want to waste like 5 models not fighting.
You never know. Sometimes you just want more wounds, right?
Yeah.
It's all the good attacks too, right? Like for when you reinforce it, you would be adding 2 more Grand Hammers, which is potentially 4 more damage. Whereas if you reinforce Vindictors, you're adding 5 dudes, potentially 10 damage. You know, it's fine. I think it would give both units merit, right? Whereas right now, Sequiturs have very little merit. But I'm interested, JJ, for you to expand on this here. You wrote, swap aspects with Liberators. Sequiturs look like upgraded Liberators, but are currently worse. So what do you mean by that?
Well, what I mean, I don't know what I meant by worse necessarily back then, but as it stands, they just aesthetically they look like a bit more of a decked out Liberator. And what I'm getting at is like give them the sort of Mortal Wounds aspect if we're going to keep the points where they are right now.
Mm-hmm. So just make them like Liberators plus.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that's fine. That's a fine niche for a unit to have. That's what they did in 2nd edition, pretty much. They were just a better version of Liberators. But I think it works better in 3rd edition than it did in 2nd. Because you're not just, like, you can do some damage with these units that actually matters.
Mm-hmm. I'm not actually averse to that. Like, I was honestly surprised they didn't have the same, like, Soul Shield ability where they added 1 to save rolls for having shields. I would have liked that better than a 5-up ward, I want to say. Like, if they just, I don't know.
Well, here's the thing. What if it was a 4-up ward?
I think that'd be way too good.
You think so? Only in combat,
yeah.
Though, right? 4-up ward only in combat.
Yeah, I think because we're still primarily a combat game. Like, I know shooting's really good, but 4-up wards in combat for like a non-hero unit would be like we talked about like reinforcing them and how it's like not viable because I mean it's nice, it's cute that you can put Grand Hammers up front, but I think a 4-up ward would be a little oppressive, especially when you consider things like Stormkeeps and how they can like keep surviving on objectives counting S15 models because they are redeemers. So
it would take them from effectively 3 wounds to effectively 4. So effectively double the wounds in combat than they are in shooting. But they do have a 4-up save. So let me ask this. How many points would it have to cost for them to have a 4-up ward in combat? Because I think that's a really cool ability, and I'm just wondering if it's possible to make it work. 160?
170, I would say. 160, 170, yeah. Maybe even 180.
So, that's cool. The idea that these, like, 5 normal-looking guys get into combat, and all of a sudden they just, like, bless themselves, and they're super durable. That seems really cool.
No, yeah. I mean, I'm not going to disagree. That sounds very cool.
180 for 5? Okay. I'd pay that for a 4-up ward in combat. Especially against the upcoming Nurgle Battletome.
Oh god, yeah, that's we're gonna see some survivability with there. They're the OG survivability tome. So,
all right, let's talk about the elephant in the room, Vanquishers. I'll let you guys go first. What do you think we should do with Vanquishers exactly?
Go ahead, JJ.
Yeah, but bring their points down if we're going to keep them where they are, or give them like Mortal Wounds on 6s if they're doing anything against hordes.
So basically, Vindictors, but without the shield in exchange for better attacks.
Yeah.
Okay, I can see that.
Yeah, I agree. For me, it was basically either reduce the points by 10. So like just like I want Sequiturs to be in contest with Vindictors, I want Vanquishers to be in contest with Liberators as the cheap battle line options, and give them 2-inch reach. I know damage 2 is unlikely because having a damage 2 unit at 115 points is like pretty sick. especially if all the great swords or whatever start doing glaives. Sorry, start doing. I don't know what they're called. Start doing damage too. But I think at 115, if they compete with Liberators with 2-inch reach and they can reinforce, they're basically like reinforceable Liberators with a 4-up save. I think that'd be great because Liberators aren't reinforceable, so you're giving that up over a 3-up save. So I think I like that idea.
Okay, and they do have natural abilities that make them want to get reinforced, so I could definitely see that. Yeah, it's almost like the rules are telling you should reinforce this unit, bro.
Yeah.
I went the opposite direction of you guys. I think they should be more expensive, and I think they should be better. And I went with get rid of their weird horde bonus attacks. That doesn't make sense. You know, these aren't swinging their swords around above their heads, trying to cleave as many models as possible. They are trying to decapitate people, right? They are very skilled swordsmen, 1 hit, 1 kill. They should have low volume of attacks, 2 damage all the time. Make them more expensive, make them 145, make them like what Sequitors currently cost. And then if you have a musician, so if you have 10 models, you can bring your musician, right? If you have that, they get 3-inch coherency.
Ooh. I feel like that's weird for a foot slogging unit. Like I don't know. I feel like that's. I mean, this is a wish listing video, so yeah, we're allowed.
Yeah, let's get weird, right?
Yeah, let's get weird. Yeah. Like I try to like temper my changes based on like what they're likely to do, even if they're not really likely to do it. But I like the idea. It's just like I find that like out of a wish list thing, I find that like very unlikely that can happen.
Yeah, just the opportunity for control in that case is amazing for those units then.
Well, consider that you still need to be within 3 inches of 2 different units or the 2 different models, right? So it's not like you get huge distance between your models. It would just be you can run them in 1 rank instead of 2 effectively. And 145 might be too low for that. You know, maybe make it 160, 170, something like that. But I think that would make me really excited about using this unit, and I am currently not excited at all about Vanquishers. Like. I haven't even bought any yet. That's how little I care about them.
Yeah, Paul and I have an ongoing joke right now that for Christmas we're just going to get exchange Vanquishers to each other as a gift.
It's the only way we'd get them.
Oh man,
we have to curse each other with these Vanquishers. Vindictors, they're perfect, right? No changes needed. Perfect points.
No.
Everything's good about them. Don't even want to make them stronger because they're just fine exactly where they are.
Agreed. Yeah, Vindictors are just fine. Like that's amazing how like they designed it like unit that's like perfect.
Yep. Points are right too. I think 15 more points than Liberators is just in that sweet spot.
Which is funny considering that we consider them A tier now versus Liberators.
Tier. Yeah, I consider Liberators to be a better unit overall. That doesn't mean Vindictors are bad by any means though. I love that they have that distinct niche. They have a particular thing that they do that is distinct from Liberators, and they cost a little bit more for it, and that is a great space for them to be in.
Yeah, I'm just pointing out that we still apparently we want to do more with Liberators, and they're an S tier unit right now, but Vindictors are good where they are.
Yeah.
I think Vindictors, it's like, it's like you want to take Liberators. Vindictors are a build around. You want to take Vindictors for a purpose.
Yep.
Yeah. Liberators are, what's the cheapest thing I can put in that's also battle line? Bang, there it is. And that's great. All right, let's talk about the Paladins. These are great models. Love them. Shield Annihilators. I thought they were just right in Dominion when they were 190, and I'm realizing that if I played Dominion today, I would still think they're overpriced. So I'm thinking in Shield Annihilators should go down to 180. I think they don't do enough, which is a crazy thing to say, right? If any other army in the game had a 2+ save, 9 wound unit with 3 models for 200 points that could deep strike 7 inches away, do mortal wounds on the charge, do mortal wounds in an area when it lands, and then still get 10 attacks on 3s and 3s, rend 1/2 damage, they would be like, of course I'm paying 200 points for that. Obviously, there's no question I'm paying 200 points for that. But in a Stormcast army, they're not worth 200 points. I can never put them in a list.
The reason I say that is because of the Lord Imperator tax. Like, the Lord Imperator is a really cool hero, and I'm glad that they gave it that free command ability a turn thing to sort of compensate. But he is a tax on this sort of unit. So, yeah, with that in mind, yeah, maybe they could be 180.
And the fact that you can only drop 1 unit in 7 inches, it means like if you're dropping in Annihilators with shields, you're not dropping in Vindictors, and you're not dropping in Grand Hammers that turn. So
Yep.
What are the Annihilators with shields doing? They have to go into a list that you want to pay 175 points for the Imperator, and you don't want to bring Grand Hammers for some reason, or even like a 15 Vindictor squad so you can tie up the enemy. What is the purpose of this Annihilator unit? I don't understand it. Because if you really want durability, you're gonna pick Protectors instead.
Yep.
So,
I mean, I have seen lists or like other strategists, you could say, trying to like make them a mobile pinning unit, something to make sure the enemy units don't make it out of their deployment zone. Which I guess is viable because like if you run them in Knights Excelsior, you don't have to really give them hit buffs. You can keep giving them all out defense all day against most kinds of like units that are over 3 models. So
yeah, I think I'd
but
rather
other than
just
that, yeah,
pay extra points and use Grand Hammers instead. Just kill whatever I'm trying to pin instead of trying to pin it. It's so hard to.
Yeah, I feel like the points
them.
differential isn't that much to where I want to say take a dedicated pinning unit like that.
If there was some way to have the Imperator like use his ability twice per turn, I would strongly consider Annihilators with shields. But
oh yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, like maybe like some kind of command trait or something that could do that. But yeah, I'm thinking 20 points down. Mergonki wrote here 10 points down, and I think you're saying that because it looks like you got that for the Grand Hammers as well. I think Grand Hammers are appropriately costed at 240. They're very strong. Their damage is absolutely insane. They have this, basically 2+ charge that they get to pull off. Can't be redeployed out of. Can't really be stopped because it's a 7-inch drop. Like you can't zone that out as easily as you could a 9. I think Grand Hammers are just fine. But you think 10 points down because of the Lord of
So
attacks?
the reason I say it's 10 points down is because of the Imperator.
Yeah.
I think either the Imperator needs to go down or like they need to go down. I don't know why they raised like 10 points on the Imperator. If they take that back, then I'll just be fine on Grand Hammers.
Mm-hmm.
Like 175 is like really high for that hero. Like I know he does a lot, but Jesus, 175 is like, and his damage isn't like spectacular or anything. So
yeah, he's a command point every turn, and attacks you have to pay if you want to use Annihilators.
Yeah.
And the fact that Annihilators aren't usable unless you have Scions, pretty much, right? That's a big deal.
There's like a lot of attacks going there. Yeah, there's a lot of like, make sure your pieces fit in this exact order. So I don't know why the Imperator is that expensive. So if they don't reduce the points on him, I'd like to see the points on Annihilators go down.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're not like Dracots. Like Dracots are like, if you take Hammers of Sigmar, Dracots are like battle line. They're an independent unit. They just act by themselves. Grand Hammers don't. Like they need the Imperator, so your opponent could kill him, and then you don't get to drop them into 7 anymore. You could, and even if they're battle line, you still need to pay that 175 point tax, which you don't in the case of like Fulminators or something.
Mm-hmm. Well, it seems like I'm the only one here who looks at the old Paladins and thinks these guys are a little overpriced. And I think maybe it's because of how difficult they are to use offensively. Even if you don't use translocation and you don't go for 9-inch charges, the fact that they only move 4 inches a turn means your opponent is going to redeploy out of your charge almost every single time. It's such a frustrating experience to move 4 inches towards an enemy to get ready for a charge, and they D6 back 6 inches. It's so frustrating. Yeah. They're so hard to use as anything except a counterattack unit or hoping for 9-inch charges. So I would like them to be a little bit cheaper. In particular, Retributors, it's the fact that they don't reinforce means there's no risk of spamming these guys. There's never going to be a list where it's like, oh, I have to face 15 Retributors. This game's broken. It's like, it doesn't matter.
No, it's fine. Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Maybe 15 Protectors. Like maybe Protectors
honestly
should stay at their price point.
Yeah,
but I think across the board, all 3 of these guys should be a bit cheaper. Decimators especially.
I agree with your Decimator take totally. I think they should be 200.
Yeah, they're so
terrible. Like they're terrible. Their
Protectors
should be cheap as Paladin.
They're Protectors with -1 save and 1-inch reach. Like, why would you do that? Why would you? Point difference doesn't make up for that.
Yep.
Evocators. You guys really want to give them reach? And I think it's pretty obvious why, but why don't you run me through it?
Go ahead, JJ.
Yeah, you want to reinforce them. You want to make as much utility out of the Celestial Lightning Arc as possible. So get the Grand Staffs in the back, and you can optimize your damage with them.
Okay. Now, if you gave the Grand Staffs reach, would you allow them to mix weapons, or the whole unit has to be equipped the same way?
I still think you should mix weapons.
I think for simplicity's sake, you should just make it one weapon or the other.
Mm-hmm. So that's obviously going to make, like, everybody's just going to use grand stabs, right? And I don't want to say that's a bad thing, but I also want to keep some legitimate reason to use the swords. Is there anything you guys would do for the the sword and tempest staff? I think they're called. Is there any changes you make to that weapon to keep it viable? Because once you make the grand stabs 2-inch reach, you're never going to see the swords again.
Yeah, I would see. The thing is, I'm kind of sad that all the paladin units, because evocators technically are paladins, they're one of the more expensive ones too. I'm sad they never got a rend increase. Like grand stabs having if the swords had -2 rends, like I could legit see sword scene play.
So like grand stabs 2-inch reach, swords rend 2.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I like that. Very very clearly different niches. If you really need them to cut through armor, then you got the rend 2, and if you need the mortal wound bomb with second rank, I can see that.
Yeah, it's like, do I want minimum size squads armor cutters, or do I want like big mortal wound grand save dealers?
Mm-hmm.
So
it's
because the grand saves won't do anything against 2-up saves most of the time. So
yeah, well, you got the mortal wounds after that, right? That was always the thing.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like yeah, but they're not meant to go up against 2-up saves. Whereas like I could take a 5 minimum evocators with just swords and be like, use it to support castigators or sequitors, and then or any redeemer unit really, and then also sort of use it to cut through armor.
Yeah. We both landed on 210 points for a squad of 5. That seems fair, especially compared to the points of like shield annihilators or protectors. I think 210 lines up pretty well, and we're pretty well aligned on that fact that they should be battle line in Celestial Warbringers. That just should happen, definitely. Now, where I differ with you guys, I've done a lot of thinking about this. I don't think they should get 2-inch reach. I don't.
Okay.
And here's why. Nobody likes playing against blocks of 10 or 15 evocators. That's just not fun. Your opponent picks up a fistful of dice, and on a 4-up, that's a mortal wound after you attack. That's just not fun, man. So I get why they got rid of it, and I have
experience with exactly what you're talking about, or other people telling me that they're not fun to go up against. So I'm not going to disagree.
No, the problem is it's fun to do it. It's really fun to do it, right? But I want it to be costlier. I want it to be possible to still do it, especially if they're in Celestial Warbringers where you can double reinforce them. We're talking about 30 dice and each 15 mortal wounds on average. That's just gonna everything just dies to that. That's so brutal. So I want to make sure that if you do that, you are investing enough points. That would be 630 points, but also it's not easy for you to just do regular attacks. And then we're also talking about a 4-up save here, right? So it's not like this unit's particularly durable. For Stormcast purposes, it's pretty fragile. It's our most fragile unit. So I don't think we should go 2-inch reach because it would incentivize running them in squads of 5, which I think is a more interesting dynamic than running them as a murder everything death.
Mortal Death Star.
Yeah. I think in terms of gameplay, both for you and your opponent, that's more interesting. Plus, there's benefits to running them in smaller squads, right? You get more casts, more unbinds, and you fill more battle line slots. And I don't want this unit, we're in this paradigm. They've made the change, it's 2-inch reach. Let's explore it. Let's see how it goes. Maybe they're still fun to use. I like the Rend 2 on swords idea. I really like that. I think we should maybe even adopt that as well. But I want to see what they look like as a squad of 5, this elite wizard unit kind of rolling around and buffing stuff and chopping stuff. I think it's cool.
Yeah, I mean, I specifically like the more casts idea, and more unbinds, and that. I technically they count as wizards for that prize sorcery grand strategy, which I know is not super relevant, but I like that.
Well, they also count as wizards for if you're playing them in Cities of Sigmar in Hallowheart. They count as wizards for that, so you can give them bonuses to cast their Empower there.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd like to explore this concept more. Praetors, JJ, what do you think about Praetors, man?
Still a little too expensive where they are, so give it a 10-penny drop like you're recommending there, Paul. And hero assignment, you should be able to do it with something that's in the Scions, I think.
Yep. Yeah, you nailed it with that. And I didn't think of it until I saw your thing, and I'm like, that's such a good idea. I wish I thought of that. Because Praetors are soul bonded. This isn't they're good friends and they're going to back you up. No. They fuse souls together. That's what the lore says, right? And as you fight alongside them, the Praetors start to lose themselves and turn into the person that they're bodyguarding. This is a deep bond, and then you play them on the battlefield, and it's like, oh, I can't do it until I put them on the table together. So if one of them is in Scions, these guys suddenly aren't. They just don't get to do that.
Actually, so I would actually do it. So like the first time you set them up, you declare who they're soulbound to.
Yeah.
So they arrive. Like that would be cool too.
If you know what, even if you have to do it before the game starts, I'm okay with that too. But the current way it's done is rubbish, complete rubbish. It doesn't make any sense. It's a bad mechanic. It really limits the potential of this unit, which is strange because it's already a very limited unit. It's only 3 models with mediocre attacks, and it's very expensive. I agree with you. 10 points, yeah, that seems about right. You don't want to make them too cheap, but I also do want to see them battle line in Hallowed Knights. I think that would be pretty sick.
Yeah.
Prosecutors with hammers. Morgana, you want a small point drop on these guys. Do you think it's justified? Because we've had a lot of experience now with this unit. We've been playing it more, especially with the Annihilana Grande list that you're playtesting. Do you think they need to be cheaper?
I think they need to be cheaper. I think they need to be cheaper than Liberators. I like the mobility option, but it's still a dice roll. It's not guaranteed. I just don't like 3 models for 115 or 110, man. I think 100, 105, 100. I think that's their range. They should be just slightly below Liberators, or like enough to where I consider them seriously instead of just paying 5 points more for like tougher bodies on objectives.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, more wounds, not necessarily tougher, but yeah, more wounds.
Yeah. But I mean, their niche right now is Absorb, Unleash Hell, which is like, it doesn't feel good paying 110 points, 105. I'll pay 100 points for that. So.
Mm-hmm. I have not had the same experience. I've actually come around on these guys as a replacement when you want a cheap screen, right? Because if you think about the concept of a screen, it doesn't matter really if it's 6 wounds or 10 wounds. You don't care about that, right? What you care about with a screen is the amount of space it takes up and how many points it costs. Because it could have no save, and it could take up more space, and it would be a better screen. Durability is not the concern. It's just, for me at least, this is how I view screens. It's just how much space they take up and how many points they cost. And 3 prosecutors take up pretty much the same space as 5 liberators. So in terms of screening duty, they're pretty much the same unit in my mind. One of them is already a little bit cheaper. 5 points doesn't really matter. But the fact that you give up 2 bodies, what you get in exchange is a 12-inch flying move and the utility of having a 3d6 charge move. And I think that's really sweet. That's a good trade-off because sometimes your liberators never get attacked. You don't need them to screen, right? Like if they're screening, they're going to do the same job, right? They block the same amount of space. Models can't, they still have to charge the prosecutors. They're not going to be able to charge through you onto the other side of you. That's super niche. It's not going to happen, right? Cut to me like losing a game because of this at some point. But if they're on screening duty, their job is to get in the way of mock rushes and Archaon and all that stuff. And they're going to do that just fine, right? They don't have to have 6 or 10 wounds. That's irrelevant. But then instead of having this unit that does pretty much nothing, right? Like this is why we use Judicators in 2nd edition, because they could sit on an objective and do something. Now, what if instead of doing something, they were just better at getting to that objective and they had the utility of absorbing Unleash Hell, right? So in my mind, prosecutors are fine at 110. Maybe 105, just because they are like way less damage and wounds. But for what you get, 110 seems about right to me right now. I want the bonus attack on the Prime. That's all I care about.
I can understand that argument.
I would like.
Yeah, I think I that's why I didn't say much. Like maybe not 10, maybe like 5 points, but I don't know. I would like at least 5 points. Them to go down by like 5 points, maybe.
Now, see,
it's not an adjustment that I would like. Be really like. It's not one of the changes that I'm obsessing over, but I think they can stand to be a little bit cheaper.
If we're going to get a 100-point battle line unit, I would like it to be probably Vanguard Hunters because they are really lacking purpose right now. And if they were 100 points, I would very strongly consider them. I put them at 115 here just because I want them to be like exactly equal to Liberators because we consider Liberators to be a very good unit. So what if this unit was costed exactly the same? Would we use it?
That's an interesting argument. Yeah.
JJ, what do you got here? Why don't you run us through this?
Personally, I love Vanguard Hunters. They're one of my favorite models in terms of just like infantry. I've been nothing but not blown away by them though. They've always disappointed me when I've used them. So Right now, I think they need to be dropped in points cost, like you said, Paul. They need a better weapon profile overall. Maybe give them a keyword like Redeemer. Um, Lore-wise, admittedly, I don't know if they fit into that Redeemer category. Or if we're not giving them a better weapon profile, maybe do something like Layla the Tyrant, either the new or the old version that the Liberators had in second. That was a pretty neat one, I think.
Oh, where they got +1 hit against like bigger stuff.
Yeah,
That would be
because
cool.
that makes them Vanguard Hunters, right?
Yeah, puts the Hunter in Vanguard Hunters. Yeah, I don't think they are Angelos units. They're not Redeemers.
Yeah.
But if there was some way to have them interact with the Redeemer rules, like if you played Astral Templars, they gained the Redeemer keyword, that would
Yeah.
be really cool.
Yeah.
I'd actually, yeah, I don't know. I feel like that Astral Compass thing is pretty cute, but it's when I think of other units that have that, I think of like the unit called Canine Shadow Stalkers that Darza Kane likes to use. And it's like that unit is just so much better at it because it's got like a native -1 to hit. It's I don't know. I just like can't ever find use for like what am I going to use these guys for? I just don't know. I don't think there's any that I can think of.
Maybe even just give them back their 7-inch deployment because they
Sure,
took that away.
yeah, I
Maybe
could
just give it right back.
Yeah, I could see that.
Now, none of us have any changes for Aetherwings, and I thought for sure at least one of us would have suggested a point drop on them. JJ, I know you have an idea.
No,
but
I think
that's
fine.
about the Raptors. We'll talk about the Raptors.
Freebird.
65 feels too expensive to me. I really feel like they should be a bit cheaper, but I didn't want to suggest anything because they're kind of like packaged in with Raptors, and if you make Aetherwings cheaper, it makes Raptors indirectly stronger, and I don't want Raptors to be stronger right now. I think they're just maybe a little too strong, but I think they're fine. This is a sad page. No opinions on the Underworld's warbands.
I'd say keep them in Underworlds. Don't do this.
Yeah, if you're not going to give us something,
it's cute.
Yeah, if you're not going to give us something actually cool and meaningful, like Xandir's Truthsakers actually have a good profile, right? That's a good war scroll. Don't bother giving them rules at all.
Yeah,
there's no.
I mean, I like it because it's like there's like I said, there's these like cute little tournaments that I go to that have that you can bring a free warband or whatever and add it to your army. So I like that. So it's like, yeah, they should have AOS rules, but like I'm fine with them never being like serious contenders over anything that's actually in the book. So
Gryphounds. I thought of some ideas to actually make people think, maybe I should use the Gryphound instead of just getting them for free from my Knight Judicator. First off, make them 100 points. So there are 6 models for 100 points. And then you make them battle line if your general is a Lord Aquilor, which there you go. There's a little bit more usefulness for the Aquilor who's currently useless. And you give them the Vanguard keyword. So now you're looking at...
I like that.
Yeah, now you're looking at this really thematic unit that you can have the by far cheapest battle line in the army, right? 100 points would be the cheapest. So you can just fill out with these 6 models that, I don't know, are basically screens, right? The fact that they're 6 means they have to fight in 2 ranks, which is just awful. So it's not like they cover up that much space. But it's cheap, it's thematic, and it borders on functional.
I wouldn't be mad at that. That actually sounds good. I would actually another way to do this would be for every like Vanguard Hunter you bring, you can bring 1 Gryphound as battle line or something.
Oh, yeah.
Sort of like the thing Sentinels have going on with Wardens.
Yeah, that could work. For every Vanguard keyword unit in your army, you could bring 1 Gryphound as a battle line. I'd like that. Let's talk about shooting. Ballistas. I think the main problem with ballistas, I don't want them to get cheaper, because the problem with just making them cheaper is you can still only bring 4 to a list, right? They're still artillery. The big problem with ballistas is that they have no unique utility. They're just raw shooting, which competes with our other raw shooting, and they are inconsistent, right? So I thought and they're not that good right now. Like in terms of efficiency, they're quite low on the scale of how strong. So I think you could bump them up quite a bit. So I was thinking the single shot, instead of being D6, you make it D3 + 3. So a lot less variance. You're doing 4, 5, or 6 damage with it instead of 1 to 6, because I don't know if you guys have used Ballista in this edition, but when you make your 2 up and then you make your 2 up and then you make the Ren 3 through the save and then you get through the ward and it's like, oh, D6 damage, it's just 1. It's the worst feeling in the world.
Oh yeah, I play Necrons. You don't have to tell me about D6 damage.
And then similarly for the rapid fire, instead of 2d6, you make it 4d3. That way you it's a little more, the distribution curve changes because instead of d6s, you're dealing with d3s, and the floor increases, right? So it becomes more reliable, and yeah, no more of these like snake eyes on the number of rapid fire shots.
Yeah, I fully agree.
And then I thought the way ballistas typically play is you set up a ballista battery, and one of the downsides of ballista right now is Unleash Hell is really, really good. So you want like a big reinforced shooting unit that can take advantage of it, and ballistas can never do that, right? So I thought, wouldn't it be cool if maybe the ballistas themselves have this ability, or maybe the Lord Ordinator would have this ability, but all ballistas within 9 inches, like, so you have a little battery here, they all unleash hell at the same time. So if one of them does
I would like that
all
once
do it.
per game. Once per game.
Sure.
Unleash hell.
Yeah. Every turn would be too much. That would be way too much. But yeah,
I think like I would like that.
If I think the Lord Ordinator should do it. That way you're still paying like the 130 point tax.
Yep.
And it would specifically.
I could even see, that weird battalion we have, Soul Strike. I can't remember. It's like the only artillery battalion.
Make that this, basically.
Yep.
It would work with this at least.
Like once per game, just you can unleash hell with all these units if they're within a certain distance of each other or something.
Yeah, that would be sick. Castigators. They should just be battle line and anvils. That's what I think. I think that 105 they're fine. I think if you're going to make castigators better, you don't make any changes to castigators. You make changes to evocators. That's how you make castigators better. Because right now they just go hand in hand. They're a sacrosanct unit that works with other sacrosanct units, and they live and die together. So just make a battle line in one Stormhost, and that's all they need. But JJ, you're thinking they need a point drop?
Well, maybe not anymore. I don't know. Again, old thoughts rather than what I'm currently seeing these days. What I do think is that they need a bit more consistency.
You don't like the D3 shots?
No.
Make them just 2 shots each?
Yeah, I think so.
2 shots, I would like that. I just don't like random, random shots and random damage make me really nervous.
Or maybe do it like 2 shots base, and if they have a special characteristic on their war scroll, if they get an empower off, make it 3 shots instead of the 1 to wound. I don't know.
What if the empower was changed from +1 hit to re-roll the number of shots? Because there's tons of ways to get +1 hit, and that's not that useful. So you could either go like Ren 2, or you could go more reliable shots.
Yeah, that would work, I think.
That would work. Or if you empower or they're channeling or whatever, then you can never go below 2 shots. 2 shots is the minimum.
Minimum 2. That'd be good. Or just add 1 to each shot, because then you're giving up Ren 2. So it's like, do you want volume or do you want accuracy? That could work.
Yep.
Cool. Judicators, both kinds, they're fine, right?
They're fine.
They're
I
expensive.
think if anything, it's Bloodstalkers and Sentinels need to go up to match that.
I think 200 points for a 24-inch shooting unit with 2 shots, mortals on 6s. 5 of those models should be 200 points. That feels right.
Yep, I agree. They actually did it right.
Mm-hmm. Yep, let's see Sentinels and Bow Snakes get up to this level.
Yep.
The game would be in a much better place. Too much shooting really ruins this game. So, Prosecutors, the Javelins. I'm guessing we're just going to have the exact same discussion we had with the Hammers, because they're functionally the same unit.
Yep.
It's disappointing because Javelins were so cool in 2nd edition, man.
They had something unique going on, it's like, this distance thing, where you're at a greater distance, you get better, and then you can close up, but you're not as good, but you still need to close up eventually for objectives. And they just took all that out, and it's like, what do I use Javelins for now? Why are they good? Because they can shoot slightly more, with slightly more range. But Prosecutors aren't a dedicated shooting unit. It's not like they benefit from Thunderbolt Volley or anything. It's like
they can. They're Angelos. They can use.
They can.
Volley.
Oh yeah. Oh god. Why would you do that? Nobody, please, nobody. Yeah, we should put that in our next Lords of the Storm. Please don't do this.
Double reinforced and Tempest Lords using Thunderbolt Volley. Let's do it.
All memes all the time.
Yeah, the exact same arguments we had before. I think they're fine. Maybe a small point drop just because they really don't do a lot of damage. And when they have javelins, you're thinking you're paying extra points for the damage, but they don't. They don't do significant damage.
Nope, no, they don't.
Vanguard Raptors with Hurricane crossbows. I think they're way overpriced. Just looking at the numbers, there's no reason to ever run these guys over Judicators. Judicators at 190 points do more damage than these guys do at 230 points. And I think the only difference is if you're fighting like 6-up saves, but there's nothing in the meta that really has 6-up saves. It's not relevant. Nobody, like, you're not bringing Hurricane Raptors because you might fight zombies one day. You're not doing that. So what Hurricane Raptors need is significant point cost reduction, I think. 20, maybe even 30 points. And then they also need something to differentiate them from the other shooting units. And they used to have this cool ability where they would reduce the charge rolls for enemies. I think we could bring that back. So where I landed with them was 210 points, the exact same profile, same damage, but enemies have -1 to charge if they're within 12.
I like that.
So they become a really cool like support shooting, like closer range shooting kind of unit. They want to be encouraged to get up close because it's going to potentially cause enemy units to fail, especially if you set up like redeploy properly. So you have these guys just on the edge of the charge, and then the unit that is taking the charge, let's say, redeploys back towards the Raptors. Yeah, you can set up some interesting things. -1 is a good effect, and you're paying 210 points for it. JJ, run me through your free Aether Wings idea.
Free bird.
Okay.
Yeah. It's just an alternative, quite honestly. Maybe give Vanguard Raptors a squad of Aether Wings for free. It doesn't necessarily have to have the +1 attack, but just give it like a free mobile screen with the unit.
Now, would you? This was an interesting idea, because what if like everybody's complaining about Vanguard Raptors with long strikes because their damage is insane. They're super fragile, right? But so everybody's thinking, oh well, you can't really increase the points because then they become like 300 points for 12 wounds or for 6 wounds. That's absurd, right?
Yep.
So it's a weird design, but I really like this free Aether Wing idea, because what if you bake the cost of Aether Wings into these units? Then you could justify raising them to, let's say, 270, 280 points. The shooting output stays the same, but they get this. They have to. That's the only way to bring Aether Wings, let's say, right? You have to pay this increased cost, and then if you reinforce the unit, you still only get the 3 birds from it. So you're losing value. I think that might be the way to go to balance this unit long term.
Yeah, that makes sense to me, especially with upcoming changes.
Yeah, and they do come together in the same box. So anybody who has Raptors has Aether Wings. There's no reason they couldn't do that. I like your idea of giving them the Vanguard keyword. I can't believe I missed that. I don't know why Games Workshop missed it.
And when I say Battle Line, I mean Battle Line and Astral Templars.
Okay. So double reinforced long strike Raptors. You're not worried about that?
Yeah.
You thought Thunderbolt Volley was bad with 6, just wait till 9. Well, hey man, it's the Wishlisting video. Let's go nuts.
No, I don't want 9 Raptors with 2 shots, please. Let's not go there.
We need a reason to play Astral Templars, right?
That's the only Stormhost. That becomes the new Anvils. Vigilors. They're overpriced, right? We can all agree on that. I think we have differing opinions of how overpriced they are. I went 15 points down, Morgonk, you went 25, and JJ, you said you just put drop points. How far are you thinking?
Honestly, I think 20 is a good realistic expectation.
Yeah.
I want 25, but 20 I think is right. For a unit that doesn't do mortal wounds and is purely a support shooting unit, I think that's fine.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I think a really interesting thing is if they would be battle line if your general was any Thunderstrike model rather than just the Knight Judicator. Because there's a lot of times where I wish I could like put these guys in, and then I think, well, I'm not paying almost 200 points for a battle line.
Yeah, honestly, I can see that going away by the next book or maybe next pitch battle profile. I don't know why they tied it to that. Like it's not even like the Knight Judicator is a damage unit, and they tied a damage unit to a support unit, and I'm like, why do that? Just make Vigilors battle line. Just give them a different niche. Like they're cheaper Judicators that don't do mortal wounds, and they only give you +1 to hit, versus Judicators that do mortal wounds. Like that's a fine enough niche. You don't need this like added adage of like a 205 point support hero.
Yeah, I agree. Yep. Any Thunderstrike model, keep it thematic, right? Because they want to promote Thunderstrike armies for some reason. I don't see why personally, but if you want to promote it, this is how you do it. You know, if you had Krondys, you could bring these guys as battle line. That would be cool.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the Dracothian Guard. I seem to be the only one who thinks Concussors and Desolators are overpriced. And again, this is just from an internal perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Fulminators and Tempestors seem just right.
So I have actually I didn't note this on the things that I sent you. I'm actually of the opposite opinion.
Really?
I think Fulminators are underpriced. I think Fulminators need to be 240.
Okay.
And
yeah.
I think we will most likely see them go to 240, 245. I think they're just like way too good on the charge to not go up by 10 points or 15 points even.
I can see that.
But yes, I think I will say, yeah, Desolators need to be 210 and yeah, Concussors needs to be 215. I can agree with that.
Yeah.
Like I think that's not something I would thought of, but I can agree with that.
I find, Desolators are just Fulminators with a charge bonus. And the charge bonus is worth 20, 30 points per squad, easy. So I thought, 10 points is pretty conservative in terms of production. You don't want to get too crazy for them because they are still on Dracoths, right? They still hit like Tempestors in melee at least. And I think Tempestors are fine at 220, and they make Concussors look bad. That's how good Tempestors are right now. Concussors are a good unit. The problem is that anytime you would bring Concussors, you can pay 10 points more for Fulminators. So let's say Fulminators were 240 and Concussors were 215. Well, now you're looking at 50 points for a squad of 4 as a difference, and that could be enough to be like, yeah, okay, I'll bring Concussors instead.
Mm-hmm.
So from a purely internal standpoint, yeah.
I know there's people out there who think Fulminator should be 300, and that's like really dumb.
Have they seen pigs? Have they seen the Gorgruntas yet?
Yeah, I'm like, well, I mean, you're also not discounting the fact that there are only 2 models that count as 4 on objectives and are only 12 wounds, so they can't be 300. That's way too much. But I do think 10 points increase on Fulminators, and then a similar kind of decrease on the Concussors and Desolators, because I think paying for that charge bonus is worth 20 or 30 points. Yeah, exactly.
Now here's an interesting discussion before we get into the heroes. I'm okay with Fulminators being 230 because our support heroes are all massively overpriced. Right, so if you start chipping away at the units in the Stormcast army that are currently very good at their point cost, then you couple that with our overpriced heroes, and suddenly you just have an army that starts falling apart, I think. So I would be okay with increasing the cost of units like Grand Hammers, Long Strikes, Fulminators, even Liberators, if it meant our support heroes got a little bit cheaper. Yeah, I think that's a big problem with this book. It almost seems intentional that they did it this way, because you look at something like the Lord Exorcist, and you're like, how the hell is this thing worth 170 points?
Mm-hmm. Or like the number 140.
Yeah, it's baffling.
I mean, if you do want to go to the hero slide, because that's exactly what I recommend.
We're almost there.
Yeah.
Evocators on Dracolines. We're pretty much all more or less on the same line here. Make them usable as battle line, and make them usable in squads of 6, because it is a tragedy that you can't use them in a squad of 6 effectively right now. You have to do this weird formation that I don't even want to get into on this podcast.
Looks like a lotus, yeah.
Yeah, I don't even want to. You guys in the Stormkeep are nuts, man. Our Discord is crazy. I just want them usable. I want them battle line in Celestial Warbringers, and I want them cheaper. 280 is way too much. 260 at the end of 2nd edition, and they were better in 2nd edition, and that I felt was still a bit much. But in 3rd edition, with a 4-up save, and they're competing with Dracoths, there is no reason for them to be 280. I'm thinking 250, battle line, and give them 3-inch coherency.
Yep.
That's what I would love. You guys are thinking 2-inch reach, and you know what? I don't like the reach on the foot evocators, but I think I would be okay with reach on the Dracolines because their mounts are still 1-inch. So if the Grand Staves, you get some value from a 2nd rank, and that's fine. That could be the limiting factor you need. I would rather just be able to run them 6 wide. I would like to do that.
Yeah. I just think they need to be 240. I think 280 is insane. Like when you consider what 6 Gorgruntas can do, at like just 20 points more. Or what like Fulminators can do. And it's just like, did they really value that wizard utility so high? I don't know. Like I'm fine with them not being reinforceable. I just want their. I think I would like bring them down to 240 or 230. Even
230.
Like it's just because they were fine at 240 because they used to be I think 240 in second edition and that never broke the game.
I think they were 260. Did they go down to 240?
No, I think they went to 250. They went to 250 I think for a bit. 250, yeah, because they were 300, went down to 280, went down to 260. Yeah, I think 260 is what we can realistically expect, but I'd like 250, 240.
Yeah, me too, for sure. It's a tragedy.
Like, have that 10 points over Fulminators, over, like, rerolling charges and being a wizard. Sure, why not? That's fine.
Yeah. Vanguard Paladors. I went with a pretty minor points cut, all things considered, because they were, 180 in second edition? And then they bumped them up to 215, which is, like, it's huge. Like, they did get stronger, right? Their War Scroll is a little bit punchier, but they're just less useful than they were before. So
yeah,
their teleport got worse, right? You can't go more than 3 inches away from an enemy. You have to be more than 9. You can charge afterwards, but the utility of being
you can't go on terrain either.
Yeah, that's a big one. You have to be more than an inch from terrain. That's a huge deal because you can't just teleport into cover. So it limits where that 9 inches can go. So I went with minus 15 points. Morganki went with minus 30. Really aggressive, which I appreciate that. I don't think that's enough to fix them, though. I think even at 185, they would get passed over because I think what's missing from this unit is a follow-up to that teleport, right? Because a 9-inch teleport is a good ability, but when you 9-inch teleport to open ground and do nothing, like you have to spend a command point to re-roll it, and even then that's less than a 50-50 to get anywhere. Yeah, I think they need a bonus to charge after they teleport. And I don't think they need more damage. I don't think they need more health. I don't think they need more armor. Just make them more mobile, right? Like double down on their mobility. They're not there. That's their niche, and they're not doing it well.
Sure. I just think 30 at minus 30, like at 185, I can see like one of these being played in an Astral Templar list. One as Battle Line, the other 2 Vanguard Hunters. Because right now I wouldn't take these guys.
I want to see all Vanguard forces work, man. And I think a +3 to charge with Paladors would be sick. Picture like 5 or 6 units of these guys all teleporting and charging. Drop in a Vexillor.
And it's honestly weird that our battle tactics and grand strategies don't. Sorry, go ahead.
I was saying if you put a Vexillor in with it as well, +3 rerollable charge in an area around it, suddenly like this MSU unit of Paladors becomes a threat.
Yeah. And I think it's like a shame our battle tactics and grand strategies don't reflect anything for the base. Based around like the fluff way, because Gur is the return of the Draconid Empire or the Draconid people or whatever. I would have liked some battle tactics that are like based around movement, kind of like the 40k, you know? I don't know. Yeah, maybe to make them more useful that way.
What if our tactic was like finish a charge that started more than 9 inches from an enemy? All right. Stormdrake Guard. I think, and I've thought a lot about this, I think they're fine. I don't think they're overpowered. I don't think they're underpriced. I think they are fine. And I'm not going to die on this hill because the models aren't out yet. So this is all just theoretical. It's all just, playtesting, proxying, and there hasn't been that much of it because I've been more excited about other units. But I think at 285, from a list building perspective, and for how much damage they do, I think Stormdrake Guard are an acceptable level. Prove me wrong. Like, I want to hear it.
So this is purely based off of testing. I think they do need to go up. So we'll get to this later. I don't think the Draconis needs to go up. I think Stormdrake Guard will need to go up at least 20 to 30 points. I chose 25. I think that double breath can just do some insane spiking, and that can create a lot of feel bad moments for your opponent.
Sure.
Not to mention they have some crazy utility in all the hero phase movement. So you can translocate them, you can hero phase move, breathe fire. It goes on and on. So the thing is, at the end of the day, they are like 18 wound monster on like if you think about it, like 2 models, 18 wound monster on a 3-up save. And I think 285 is slightly on the lower side for that. I think they need to be 310,
all right.
315 maybe.
Let me make the case then, because I agree it is an 18 wound monster. But what if an 18 wound monster, once it took 9 wounds, lost half of its damage? Like straight up, half of its damage is just cut off. It's gone, right? You would look at monsters very differently. And what if that monster wasn't a hero? Because we're used to hero monsters, right? They can Finest Hour, they can Heroic Recovery. They're actually 18 wounds, so that if you take 12 wounds off them, they can just heal it all back up. Stormdrake Guard take 9 wounds. Yeah. That model is dead. You have to rally and hope to roll a 6 while you're not in combat.
They'd have to restrict the way to spam them somehow. Like it would have to be something like for each Night Draconis, 1 unit of Stormdrake Guard becomes battle line. Like not Stormdrake Guard or battle line period with Night Draconis. Because right now the problem isn't that 285 isn't a good price point for them. The problem is if I take because we did this in the first Lords of the Storm episode. Remember that dragon spam list?
Yep.
It's like that spam is what annoys the crap out of people. So it's like they need to like find a way to cut the spam. So I think plus 25 points is a way to do that. Another is for if you take 1 Night Draconis, you can take 1 unit of Stormdrake Guard to make it battle line.
Okay. So we're looking at 2 problems here as far as I can see it. One is the double mortal wound breath, which I agree is a stupid ability because it can spike so high. On average, it's not that scary, but the fact that you can just roll a bunch of d6 mortal wounds and they can be crazy high, I don't like that. I think that is the exact same problem that evocators have, and this is worse because it's before you attack. It's in
I was going to say
that. It's before you charge. It's crazy, right? It has a longer threat range. It's not restricted to melee. You can't screen it. There's a lot of issues with it, especially because it's like the evocator one is a lot more reliable, but this is from a longer range and it can spike high. So you have to play around the threat of it, and that's not fun to play around. But I think that's not a problem with the Stormdrake Guard. That's a problem with the Night Draconis, who enables the hero phase breath attack, right?
Yeah.
So either they could change the Night Draconis to make him go up. So maybe go the opposite of what you're saying. Keep the guard at the same price, but increase the cost of the Night Draconis tax. Kind of like what's keeping Grandhammers in check right now is that Lord Imperator tax. Because who knows how crazy we would have gone with Grand. Like we have lists with 9 Grandhammers right now. We probably could have gone 12 or 15 if the Imperator was much cheaper.
Maybe, yeah. I think, that's fair.
So there's a lot of things I like about Stormdrake Guard that I don't want to see go away. I like their durability. I like the fact that they are a monster, so that they can do rampages and count for bonus victory points. Because that's another thing you have to consider is that you're giving away victory points. Like imagine every time you did 9 wounds to a Maw Crusher, you got a victory point. That's what we're dealing with here, right?
Oh yeah, that's pretty sick.
And those 9 wounds don't get healed back up, right? Stormdrake Guard also are not the punchiest unit in this book. They're not even top 3, right? Like it's got to be Grandhammers, Fulminators, and Raptors. Stormdrake Guard are maybe top 5, but probably.
Yeah, they're very reliant on the breadth. I mean, for sure. Like, yeah, you're not going to be doing tons of melee damage. Just mostly the breadth that's going to be ruining people. So especially since it has like a shooting profile, I think, so you can unleash hell with it. So
you can, yeah. Maybe what they do then is change Wrath of the Draconith to be a shorter range, because one of the issues right now is, I assume at least, you hero phase move your Drakes up, and then you move your Drakes up, and then the threat range is tremendous. But the problem is that you could run way too far ahead of the Night Draconis. So maybe what they do is errata the range of Wrath of the Draconith. So many freaking names. Wrath of the Draconith. They errata the range of that to like you have to be within 3 inches of the Draconis. Maybe that is enough of a limiting factor, because then you have a set threat range around where the Draconis can go. Because he can't do the hero phase move.
I'm just thinking they'll either I'm thinking like I just don't like War Scroll. I think the War Scroll's fine. I think both of them are fine. I think the change needs to be like the easiest thing to do would be to make that pitch battle profile change, which is either points or make it so that you can't spam them.
I like the idea that only 1 can be battle line per Night Draconis in your army, because I also like that more than if the Draconis is a general, because it would open up options. You can keep another general and still bring battle line Stormdrake Guard somehow. Yeah. And then if it would also really encourage mixing in like Krondys and Karazai alongside the Draconis, or 2 Draconis if you were so inclined. I like that idea a lot more, and I think that would prevent the spam as well. Because what we're seeing right now is there's like 3 main ways of using the Drakes in lists. One of them is you go all in on Drakes, right? Like 3 squads, one of them reinforced, and that's the list. And that would get shut down if you made it so that the Draconis was a tax to make them battle line for each unit, right? Because you'd have to bring 3 Draconis to have 3 battle line Drake Guard. Another way to use them is a single reinforced squad of 4, which you still bring a Draconis there so that you can double tap the breath, but I don't think that is, like, to me, that feels pointed appropriately. You're paying 900 points for that combo for 4 Drakes and a Draconis. I think that's fine, personally. And then there's the third way of running Drakes, where you still bring the Stormdrake Guard. You bring them like maybe a squad of 2 just to round out a list, right? So you don't bring a Draconis, you don't end up buffing this unit tremendously. It's just like, I want a fast anvil. and then you stick that in the list. So those are the three main ways I see people using Drake Guard, and the last two don't seem abusive to me or even oppressive. They just seem fine. And the first one, I'm not convinced is very strong, but it's not fun to play against. So
Okay.
I like the idea of limiting it so that the Draconis makes one unit battle line. It doesn't have to be the general. And personally, I in that situation, I would keep the points the same. I don't think these guys are undercosted for what they do, but I can agree that playing against nothing but these guys could be a frustrating experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's my main concern. It's like just make them unspammable. I think that it's like we keep having this talk. Is like, how is something too good? Well, it depends on how it scales and how reliable it is. If you can address the scalability in this case, and then it'd be okay.
Yeah, this isn't like we're not at a situation like Seraphon are right now, where you bring 3 or 4 squads of salamanders just because they're that good, right? Like Stormdrake Guard are not salamander level good. They're good, but they're a lot more expensive, and they have combo pieces that are required to make them good. I think they're kept in check. So we're not at that level, and I don't think anything in the Stormcast book would be at that level, except potentially Stormdrake Guard. So I think limiting it one battle line with the Draconis is fine. It's a good change.
All right. Yeah.
JJ, what are your thoughts on Drakes? You think about Drakes a lot like we do?
Admittedly, no. Focused on other things and figuring out other things right now, so.
Well, maybe next month then.
Yep.
Okay, Stormstrike Chariot. 165 points seems fine. The problem with this unit, as far as I can tell, is that it's really hard to find 165 points that you want to put on a single chariot, because it can't be reinforced, so it doesn't get any force multipliers. The only thing I could think of is you make it cheaper, but you can't because it's so good. The stats are just great. So make it battle line. Make it battle line and Celestial Vindicators, and then it becomes a good option.
Ooh, I didn't think of that. Oh, that's pretty good. Yeah. Yeah, that's decent. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Could you imagine an alternate kit for the Stormdrake chariot that's got a Celestial Ballista in it, and you use Lord Orc to make it battle line?
Yes.
Oh, like the Dark Elf chariot with like a crossbow.
Yeah.
I see what you're talking about. Yeah.
I could definitely see a Lord Imperatant riding around in the back of one of those things. I don't know where the Gryph-hound would go. Maybe he upgraded his Gryph-hound to the ones that are carrying the chariot. Yeah.
The not Gryph Chargers.
They hit level 16 and evolved. Yeah, I like the idea of putting a cannon on a chariot. That would be sick. Kind of defeats the purpose, right? Like it becomes more like a war wagon than a battle chariot. But yeah.
Yeah.
Well, given the model, like you have all this room on the side of the chariot where the fighters are kind of hanging off, you could stick one cannon on each side.
I'm even surprised they're using a bow. I would have thought crossbow would have made more sense, like with the Stormstrike chariot and its speed.
I think a lot of the Warhammer Fantasy ones use bows.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about the heroes. Let's do it. This is the half the army here. So, Knight Arcanum.
I'll just say my piece before we. Yeah, I think all heroes except for the Knight Draconis and Knight Incantor need to go down by like 15 points. That's gonna be my general thing. Like I think all of our heroes are freaking overcosted, and they need to go down by like 10 to 15 points.
Especially for what they actually do. Yeah, they're massively overpriced.
Yeah, it's like Game Workshop was like, oh god, we upgraded these to 2 damage. They'll just be wrecking things. I'm like, no, not really.
They are drastically overvaluing a 3-up save when it comes to support heroes. Like it's not that good. The way people usually kill support heroes is with sniping them, usually mortal wounds.
Mm-hmm.
Like a 3-up
for
save.
Me, it's a flat 15 point decrease for everything that isn't a Knight Draconis or Knight Incantor.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Okay, all right. JJ here, you want the Knight Arcanum to have the Sacrosanct keyword?
I think so, because
makes sense.
It's the Dwarf Lord Arcanum, right? Why not make it a Sacrosanct unit?
Yeah. It should be. It definitely should be. I think 20 points for Knight Arcanum. I would like to see it 10 points below the Incantor. I think the Incantor spending 125 points for Dispel Scroll is fine. That's a really cool thing our army does. I don't want to see that changed. I also want there to be an option for a cheap wizard. So 115 points. This is I have I want to bring the cheapest wizard possible. Here you go. That's the niche. Doesn't require changing her terrible war scroll. Just make her cheap, and she's playable.
Yep, cheap. I think we'll get to the Knight Relictor, but I want Knight Relictor and Knight Arcanum to basically be the cheap utility.
Yeah,
niche.
Exactly. Knight Azeros, I want 2 changes. I want to keep him at 120 points, and I want to make him worth 120 points. So I would like to see the Light of Sigmar. Right now, I think it's you have to pick a unit within 8 inches, make it 10 inches. That doesn't seem like much, but then it would allow you to use it out of Scions of the Storm like you could in first edition. So that seems like a no-brainer. And in addition to that, instead of just giving you +1 to hit against that unit, it's a light, it's blinding, it also gives the enemy -1 to hit. Seems like a pretty straightforward change to make. Little piece of utility, you can give 1 unit -1 while you have +1 against it.
And then I would...
Go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to say, most of what I said sort of lines up with yours. I would just maybe add like a bonus to charge for Guiding Light.
That would be neat. Yeah, +1 to charge while you're around the Azeros, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think they're specifically trying not to give us bonuses to charge, because they gave us the 7-inch Scions with the Grand Hammers and whatnot. So I would love to see it, but I don't think they're going to do it. And the reason I especially love it because in first edition the Azeros had this ability to make you when you use I think it was called Lightning Strike back then. It wasn't called Scions of the Storm, but when you dropped in from reserve, you could specifically go anywhere wholly within 5 inches of the Azeros. Not wholly, just within 5. So it was this unit that would guide you into combat. So it would be cool if they brought that back. Yeah, +1 to charge aura around him would be really sick. Maybe just pick 1 unit and it gets +1 to charge.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Morgonki went with 15 points down. Yep, makes sense. I would consider playing him at 105 because he is fast. You can give him an Arcane Tome. He becomes a nice little utility piece. Knight Draconis, I think we talked about this one into the ground already. Let's not bring it up again. Knight Heraldor. This is another hero that I don't think needs to get cheaper. I just want to see them have an ability that's useful. And the ability I would like to see the Knight Heraldor have is once per game, you can use on the double on 3 Stormcast units at the same time. And on the double is run 6. Now, I don't think this would be overpowered because Stormcast, they don't have the ability to use run and charge in anything. They have it once, and it has to be issued with a holy command, and that holy command is a received command, which means a unit cannot receive on the double and steadfast march at the same time. So yeah, Knight Heraldor making 3 units run 6. It fits with what he used to do without breaking the game. Makes him worth 105 points, I think. Just once per game, you just push 3 units up the board. And you wrote, make Heraldor great again.
Just do something. He needs anything, really, at this point.
Yeah, he was such a good model in 2nd edition, man. What a shame.
Yep.
Yeah, Heraldor just is a weird place.
And Cantor is in a good place. No changes needed there, I think. Knight Judicator, I'm coming around on him. I still think he's overpriced a little bit, but I don't want to see any changes to him just yet. I kind of want to wait and see on that one. 15 points down from Morgonk. And yeah, let's just let him, let's just see what he does. Knight Questor, I think we should just retire him. Just take him out of the book. He's one of these side board game models that they put in the book, and I wish they would stop putting them in the book. I don't want to try to make him useful. What?
And making new sculpts for him?
Yeah, there's a million Knight Questors, man. Maybe that's why they keep them in there, just so that when they sell these models, they can say, oh, well, you can use it in the game. Look, it just use the Knight Questor War Scroll, even though you don't have a shield. Just use it. Knight Relictor. I would like to see him at 115 points. Make him a cheap priest, and then the fact that he has maybe the worst War Scroll in the game doesn't even matter, because Stormcast prayers are so good, and spending 115 points instead of 145 on a Relictor, and a Lord Relictor, that could be enough to make him playable.
Yeah, I agree. The only reason I say do something and I don't give a recommendation is I just found when I was doing my notes, a lot of my recommendations came down to point drops. So just doing something unique with him that distinguishes him from the Lord Relictor be nice.
I think his niche is fine. The ignore prayers thing, like it's not very useful, but I think it like I said before, I think his niche just needs to be cheap priest.
Yeah.
I would take him as cheap priest. Like there's been lots of list times where I'm making lists, and I don't really need the Lord Relictor's 2-up prayer guarantees. I think I'd be okay with the 3-up and spend the point somewhere else. So
Another way they could go is this is a radical idea, I know, but give him a War Scroll prayer.
yeah,
Why doesn't he have one?
I'm surprised that's not the case because even the Arcanum I think has like a War Scroll prayer. It's kind of like a lightning blast but targeted.
Yeah, she has a spell. This guy doesn't even have his own prayer. But he has a mace. Did you guys see the mace? 3 attacks?
Rend 1, bro.
It's so sick.
6 damage max. It's gonna ruin people at 140 points. Oh my god,
it's so good.
Yeah, it's like
All right, if you guys were to design a prayer for this guy, off the top of your head, what would it be? Because he's got this 4-up ignore against prayers. It makes me wonder, what if he had a prayer to give a unit a 5-up ignore against spells? That's where my thoughts go.
I could see that. Yeah, like if you want to keep it sort of fluffy as per what he does, yeah, like a 5-up spell ignore would make the most sense. I'd honestly want like an offensive prayer, like go like the Rune Lord, increase the rend of one Stormcast unit by 1.
Shooting and melee or both or what?
Melee only. Shooting
melee
would be too
only.
good.
Okay. So Rend 3 Fulminators is what you want.
Rend 3 Fulminators, Rend 2 Liberators. Why not?
Sure, make it a 6 chance.
Because you have to choose, right? He's not a double prayer
Yeah.
priest. You have to choose between that and like translocation or whatever else you're doing.
Well, maybe that's a route you go, is you make him able to chant 2 prayers per turn, but only one of them has to be universal and one of them has to be a Stormcast prayer.
Mm-hmm.
That could be an interesting
I could also give him like an offensive prayer, like sort of like the Lightning Storm thing that the Relictor has, but sort of like in an area of effect. Like
I like that.
Like instead of being an 18-inch targeted D3 more wounds and a -1 to hit, it could be like everything that's within 9 inches takes D3 more wounds on a 2-up.
Maybe just like everything within 9 inches, like an aura activates 9 inches, enemy units within it have -1 to hit.
Yeah, I would be okay with that too. Yeah.
There's so much they could do with him, but they did nothing. Knight Venator. So I think in this case, this model is so bad and it's overcosted. I thought it needs a point drop and it needs a unique utility. So what I went with was 25 point drop down to 150. And once per game, he can issue Unleash Hell for free because he's a shooting guy. It kind of makes sense. It's still not enough to make him playable, but you feel less stupid for bringing him. And then Morgana.
Sure. Yeah, why not? I mean, I'm going for points drops. I just feel like it's like some War Scrolls. Like, I'm okay with not playing some War Scrolls. Like I'm over the Night Vendor. I don't want to fix him. I'd rather fix some other things, but yeah, I think it's fine. So
Vexilor, I went with no point drop, and I went with units nearby can also reroll run. And I think that's really interesting in the context of our current army where you have Steadfast March but no way to reroll it. I think this paying 120 points, I think people would do that just to get a reroll on Steadfast March. Like, you're putting all these resources into this one ability, but we're so lacking in mobility that I think people would be willing to do it. JJ, you had a really sick idea here, man.
Yeah, just give one of the Vexilors or both Vexilors, doesn't really matter. Give them an extra die out in the charge. Makes that banner really, really good.
Yeah, a 3d6 charge, even like it doesn't have to be an 18-inch max. It could still be like it could be 3d6 drop 1. It could be 3d6 period. Yeah, I think that's really sick. As an aura, it might be too strong. Like everything around him getting a 3d6 charge might be too strong. But maybe like pick one unit and give it a 3d6.
Yeah,
that's really good. That's a really cool idea. The healing banner. I don't like the healing banner. The model is sick, but there's a It's just the ability is so lackluster because it's once per game. It's 3d3 healing, And if you have any wounds on you, it has to heal first, and then it starts reviving models. So it's really bad on Stormcast. And it's also D3 based, which means it doesn't, most Stormcast units are multiples of 2 or 3. We don't have any 1 wound models. So you can just have this waste, effectively. It's really bad. So what I would like to do is, Andrasta has these abilities to revive models and become immune to battle shock. I think those abilities make more sense on the Knight Vexillor. Get rid of his weird healing ability, and just every turn, all you're doing is you're ignoring battle shock and you're reviving a model, and you're rerolling charge. And that is a sick unit. For 160 points, I would bring that.
That's interesting. Yeah, half the points of Andrasta without the offensive ability, but just her support ability. That's very good. That's a good picks. I like that.
Mm-hmm. Again, another 15-point drop from you. Knight Zephyros, I actually increased her points in this case because I want to see her deal bonus damage against heroes in melee. So instead of 6 attacks,
you mean their second edition War Scroll, basically?
Pretty much, yeah. But this time, if you remember the artifacts I was suggesting, they could actually be really good assassins because they can teleport, they can hope for a 9-inch charge, and then they can do 12 damage in melee on Rend 1, mind you. It's not very good, but I went with a 20-point increase to justify that because it is effectively doubling her damage. So maybe 20 points is enough, especially when you consider how good I made the artifacts in our army, because you can reroll hits and wounds. So her 6 attacks, 3s, full rerolls, 2 damage apiece is a nice little sniper.
Yeah, sure.
I still wouldn't play her, but
yeah, I mean, I wouldn't, but
yeah.
Still, it's a good, cute little niche, I think.
Lord Aquilor. He's totally useless right now. Even if they gave him the Vanguard keyword, I think he needs a significant point drop. The Vanguard playstyle doesn't make sense, and he's the centerpiece of it, but not really because he doesn't really do that much. So, yeah, 30-point cost drop. He needs a lot.
Yep.
I don't even know where to start with him. I liked how he played in 2nd edition a lot. I really liked that playstyle. You could ping-pong units back and forth around the table. You could never really get tied down, and you just maybe bring that back. I don't know.
Maybe like a summoning, like he can summon a unit of Gryph-hounds or something.
Yeah, a free unit of Gryph-hounds would help.
Yeah,
or maybe every turn.
No, not every turn. Or like something like either you can summon 2 units of Gryph-hounds to the battlefield when you set him up, or you can set up 2 units of Aether Wings when you set him up. Something, I don't know, like an allure. Because yeah, he just doesn't have a purpose in the game.
I like that. I like that ability a lot. Yeah, when the game starts, you can choose either set up 2 units of Gryph-hounds or 2 units of Aether Wings.
Yeah,
I like that a lot. All the Arcanums, I think the Lord Arcanums should all be 15 points cheaper from where they currently are. This is not assuming with how I want Cycle of the Storm to change. This is like assuming Cycle of the Storm stays the same. I want to see all of these guys go down 15 points because they're all massively overpriced wizards.
Same. I think if they don't make them 2-cast wizards, they all need to go down 20. I'm going to be more aggressive with the points decrease.
I like the idea of making them all 2 spells because it would really help differentiate them from our other wizards who have clearly defined niches, right? Like the Knight Arcanum would be the cheapest one. The Knight Incantor has the Dispel Scroll, and then the Lord Arcanums all cast 2 spells. So that would be a cool way to differentiate them.
Mm-hmm.
And I also noted here your idea for changing Cycle of the Storm. If you had that new Cycle of the Storm, you'd be okay with casting, their current point values?
I think so. I think it'd be worth a shot at that because that gives them some like castle utility.
Mm-hmm. Lord Castellan, small point drop is all he needs. Good model, but very niche in what he does, and it's hard to justify paying 155 points for +1 save. It just feels too expensive. And if they reduce the cost of a lot of our support heroes, I think it opens the door to a lot more builds. They just all feel overpriced. I'm totally in agreement with you on that. I don't want to see him get stronger. I don't want to see the Lantern become more of a thing. I just want him to be a bit cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Lord
I like your Lord Celestion.
Yeah, I thought you might. So once per round, I increased the cost of Lord Celestion a little bit, and I gave him, because right now he has the ability to give a unit all-out attack for free. And I thought, well, he's the Lord Celestion. He's the leader of the chamber. He's the tactical genius and warrior frontline guy, right? So once per round, allow him to issue all-out attack or all-out defense to 2 different Stormcast units at the same time.
You took a page out of the Maw-Crusher book.
Yes,
I like that.
Very much. It definitely feels on point for what a Lord Celestion should be doing. He's directing battle from the front line. I don't know how exactly you'd have to word this ability. If it would be like when you use all-out attack and shooting, it has to go to another unit using all-out attack and shooting, or 2 units in combat. I don't know how you'd have to figure it out, but yeah, I just like the idea.
No,
of the
it could just be a carbon copy of the Mokdasha ability, where you can issue all-out attack again, but the second time you issue it to someone, you don't have to use a command point.
Yeah, and you can do that once per round. You know.
Yep.
So not once per turn, once per round. So the Imperator still has some unique utility, and I think that combined with his surprisingly good melee attacks, like the Lord Celestin actually slaps when he gets in melee. He does good damage. It is Rend 1, mind you, so it's not great, but those 6s on hit, that's a nice effect.
Yeah, that hurts.
10 extra points. I want to see the Lord Celestin be a little bit more elite, more of a leader. Similar to the one on Dracoth, give him the exact same ability. Once per round, you can give this to 2 different units. And I think still make him a bit cheaper. Lord Celestin on Dracoth is really overpriced.
Mm-hmm.
Lord Exorcist, I don't want to see him get cheaper. I want to see him gain the priest keyword, because I would pay 170 points for a free arcane tome, effectively.
See, that's interesting. I just when I think of his fluff, if he's like the anti-death wizard, what's his thing? No resurrection within 9. I think that's worth maybe 150 is still pretty high. I think he's fine. I don't think he needs priest. He's part of the sacrosanct chamber. He's a wizard. Let him be. I think he's just 170 is too high. I think they overvalue that ability. Maybe if death comes back in a big way with resurrection, maybe that'd be a problem. But I can't ever see myself paying 150 for that. I'd rather just kill them. So paying 140 or 150 would be fine.
I could see that, but the problem is that he's competing against other wizards, right? So I can't see him ever going in a list. He would have to be the cheapest wizard, and then what's the Knight Arcanum going to do?
Maybe they could make it like a 115, 120, 125 situation.
Maybe. I think he gets so niche at that case. I think the only way to make him better and usable is to give him some unique thing.
Make him 130. You know why? Because A, he has the anti-death thing. B, he is a lord, so he gets higher range on your spells.
Okay. I can see that, yeah. Paying 15 points over an Arcanum to get a Lord instead of a Knight. And maybe once in a while you stop models from reviving. I could see that. Lord Imperator, small point drop. Bring him back to what he was in Dominion, pretty much. He was fine in Dominion. There was no reason to jack him up.
Yeah.
Ordinator, you went with a small drop. I didn't, because my change to the Ballista I think is justified. If the Ordinator has the ability to activate Unleash Hell on all Ballista within some distance of him, then yeah, keep him at 130. He's fine. Lord Relictor, you specifically suggested Lord Relictor should get a point drop, and that's intriguing because he is without a doubt the best hero in the book. Almost every list has him. I think 125 is fair.
Okay, when I think of him at 100 points, he was better in a way in second edition because you could spam prayers, or not spam prayers, but you got the War Scroll prayer, then you got the book prayer. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's gone. He is a really good hero. 145 is still pretty high.
It's a consistent problem across the book where support heroes are expensive, and I'll agree with you there. But I think in just the +1 to prayer with how good our prayers are, I think 145 is worth it. If we had bad prayers, I'd agree with you. But,
that's fair. Okay, I'll take it.
I don't think I wouldn't be sad to see him get a point drop, right? Considering he is 6 wounds, 3 up save, right? 130 feels about right. But yeah, that +1 to chanting is so good, man.
Yeah, I can see that.
Veritant, JJ here, you wrote to give him an unbind bonus, and I'm right there with you because he used to have an unbind bonus. He used to have a little dog. Him and the dog were different models. And if any Gryph-hound unit was within a certain range of an enemy, the Veritant would get a bonus to unbinding that enemy. And I thought that was awesome. The Gryph-hound was rooting around, finding evil, and that made it easier for the Veritant to do his job. So I would very much like to see some form of that come back. And in this case, what I wrote here is +2 to unbind and dispel if he is within 18 inches of the target. So if he's trying to unbind a wizard, if he's within 18, he gets a bonus to unbind. Or if he's within 18 of an endless spell, he can add 2 to unbinding it. Or dispelling it, I mean. And make him 140 points. So 5 points less than Relictor, but he has this cool utility that the Relictor doesn't have. Because this would be in addition to his prayer.
Mm-hmm.
Drakesworn Templar, I went really aggressive on the point cuts on the 2-star Drakes because it is really hard to fit them in lists. Really, really hard. And the fact that their list got worse because of the menagerie change, to me, really makes them seem like they should be worth. I don't want them to get under 400 points because I don't want other armies to start allying them in because they are like an iconic Stormcast unit. So I think 420 for the Drakesworn and 450 for the Celestant seems about right. I kind of agree with your take, JJ. They just give the Drakesworn a 3+ save again. Just do it. There's no reason for him not to have it. All right, unique heroes. Estrella Soulbright. She is a Lord Arcanum. She should go down 15 points. That's about as far as I get to thinking about her. It's really hard to consider when to use her because her ability is so specific to Sacrosanct. So, like, make Sacrosanct units better, she gets better. That seems pretty obvious. You did your typical thing to cast 2 spells or revive a model or a big point cut. Like, something's got to change. Aventus, pretty much the same thing, right? 325 points is too much for that model. Stormsire's Cursebreakers, I think they are fine at 230 because they're an alternative to the Knight Incantor. They could be cheaper, but frankly, I just don't care that much.
Yeah, it's not. I just put it there because I think all our heroes need to go down, but it's like I said, I don't care about Warmans that much.
Yeah. Celestant Prime, I would like to see Celestant Prime a little bit cheaper. He just feels just slightly too expensive, so I want to see him at 300. JJ, you've got some strong opinions about Celestant Prime. Let's hear him.
Yeah, he just doesn't feel where he should be, personally. Amongst the inconsistencies with the lore, he carries the Warhammer, make him feel like he's carrying the Warhammer. Right now, Bastion feels a bit more potent than he does right now. So make him a threat upon initial deployment. Give him the 7 attacks out the bat. Maybe if you are putting him in reserve, make him do the impact mortals like Annihilators would or something like that.
Oh, that'd be sick. He used to have an ability where he came into play, all enemies around would have a bravery modifier. I think -1 or -2. I think it was -2.
Yeah.
And that felt right.
Yeah. But so he comes down and enemies lose hope. Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah. Bastion doing more damage than Galmaraz is unacceptable to me. It's so stupid.
They also could have led with 4 base attacks, instead of 3.
Maybe just +1 attack. That could be enough to fix him. The fact that he can't stay in reserve on rounds 4 and 5, where he used to be able to do that, that's a burn as well. I don't like that. Just really sticking it to us. Mortals on the charge. I like the mortals on the charge idea a lot because he's got all these comets swirling around him, and the fact that they're only used to change 1 dice roll. I think that's a good effect, but aesthetically it seems like all the swirling meteors should do a lot of damage with whatever they come into contact with.
Yep.
Maybe he could give him the monster keyword?
Maybe. No, I don't think so. No, don't do that.
Yeah, you don't want it to be worth a victory point.
Yeah.
Gardas. He's perfect. Don't make any changes, please. For
sorry, I should have said Gardas. I totally forgot. Yeah, I don't want. Never mind. I take that back. The -15. Take it back.
For the love of God, nobody make any changes to Gardas now or ever, please. He is perfect, and he done nothing wrong. Don't hurt my boy. Gavriel Sherheart. Look how they massacred my boy.
Yeah.
It's so bad. So I think he should be like a super Lord Celestant, but specifically for the Hammers of Sigmar. So I had this idea of using all-out attack on 2 units, so let Gavriel Sherheart use it on 3 units. And I also wrote here once per turn rather than once per round. So he becomes super efficient at giving your army +1 hit and +1 save. And I think that is worth a 15-point increase.
Fair. I can agree with that.
Maybe more. Maybe 160 like Gardas. Make him the Gardas of Hammers. That would be cool.
Sure.
Bastion.
I just want generic Lord Commander.
Yeah, that would be good.
Yeah, I think he's fine. I think I don't think any of I count him as a prime, so I count Indrasta, him, and Celestin Prime as the 3 primes. I think none of them can really be below 300. I think 300 is fine.
Yeah,
I think Indrasta could be. It's just not that good. Neve Black Talon. So with the Knight Zephyros, I gave them +1 damage against heroes in melee, and I went one step further with Neve Black Talon because she's like, mega assassin lady, right? So I thought +1 damage, and you get to fight first if you're fighting a hero.
I like that. Yeah.
That's pretty damn cool, right? You would even bring her outside of Hammers of Sigmar because that's just
Yeah, because she's independent. She doesn't care about being Hammers, really.
Yeah.
Just she is, but yeah.
So I think that thematically and in terms of gameplay, it makes a lot of sense for her. And I would actually consider using that. A fight first, 6 attacks, or is she 7? Let's just say 6 attacks.
7.
7. Okay, so she gives up an artifact. Can't take that. But yeah, potentially 14 damage on a fight first against a hero. Seems good.
Mm-hmm.
Vandus Hammerhand, I think he's okay at 215, but I definitely see an argument for making him cheaper because he's...
The reason I see that is because like he's just a different Lord Celestin, can't take traits and artifacts.
Yeah.
But you're not going to take a Lord Celestin and him. So like just, I don't know. Minus 15, the unique characters, in my opinion, should be cheaper than their generic dates cost.
Okay.
Like not by much. It could be like 5, 10, 15 points in that range, but yeah.
I can see it. Andrasta. So I think she could be less than 200 points, and I think she could be stronger than she currently is while being less than
you want her to be a
points.
beat stick. Yeah,
I do.
Okay.
So here's what I did with Andrasta. I made her 280, so she's the cheapest of all these demigod models that we have. Remove all her support abilities because it really nothing in her model and nothing in her fluff suggests that she would be reviving models around her and granting a battle shock immunity aura. That doesn't make any sense. What she is all about, in terms of looking at the model and looking at her story, she is fast. She's got these wings that carry her around. She's supposed to be mobile, and she's supposed to be aggressive, right? So get rid of her support nonsense. Give that to the Knight Vexilor with the healing banner. Give her 2 more attacks in melee, so she's actually a threat when she gets in melee instead of just like bouncing off people. And give her the ability to retreat, run, shoot, and charge. So you just can never tie her down. She's got these really cool wings, and the only thing they do is give her a 12-inch fly move. That's not enough. That's an iconic part of the model. Make it really obvious when you look at this model that, oh, I'm never tying this thing down. It's going to fly around and do whatever it wants.
Okay, I can see that. Yeah, I feel like they should never have taken the support. I think the Celestin Prime should have been more like Andrasta.
I agree. And I definitely agree because I want Celestin Prime to be this like beat stick, right? But I also really like the flavor of Celestin Prime coming into battle at the end of the day and saving the day, right? Like things are getting dire and you're down and he comes in at the last second and saves the day. I've loved that about Celestin Prime forever. So if we're going to have this just flying beat stick, let Andrasta do that and let Celestin Prime keep his more narrative focused thing.
Sure.
And let's talk about our big dragons here. So you gave me like minus 20 across the board. I think you can go a lot cheaper on the 2 big dragons, especially.
I was a little bit conservative because they're new models and I haven't gotten to test them, so I don't really know. But I can see minus 40.
The Calamitous Tail is so freaking strong. I hesitate to say we should drop the points of Krondus by 100, but yeah, he's just really, really expensive. It's really hard to find 600 points on a list for Krondus because he's not strong enough in terms of damage output.
Yeah, my problem is ward saves. Like every unique character we have is some sort of like weird defense against mortal wounds or like specifically like spells or like some kind of, like those abilities. And he doesn't. He's just a really good beat stick with a +3 to cast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's something I was thinking about today. It was so weird because I'm looking at the Stormdrake card and they have a 4-up spell ignore. Because they're Draconith, right? It's the lineage of the Draconith. It's in their blood or whatever. And then you look at the big Draconith, and they don't have the ability to ignore spells on a 4-up. Like, what?
Yeah.
Give them that, and I would say 600 points, sure. But, the fact that they're just 18 wounds on a 3-up, and you have to pay all these points into them to make them really good. And Karazai, I feel like, pays that out pretty well, right? Like, you give him Gardas to give him a ward, you give him all these buffs, and he actually feels good to buff up. Krondus doesn't have that going for him. Right, because he's just
especially after the Celestial Menagerie change, I think minus 40 at least is a warranted. Like, if not more, I think minus 40 is the floor, and then you could possibly do more than that.
I went heavy, I went minus 100 because he's just not that impressive to me. I could see like if he cost the same amount as a Stardrake currently costs, I could probably have some fun with him. Karazai also feels a little overcosted. I went 10% down on him, so minus 60. Maybe that's a bit much. Maybe Karazai will actually end up being really, really, really good and not just like a Timmy piece that's going to charge up the middle of the board with all the buffs and smash everything. But yeah, I want these guys to be good, so undercost them. Sure, let's undercost them because I just want them to be playable. I want Stormcast to have actual god models that they can use.
Yeah, that's fair.
And that wraps this up. That's our Stormcast wishlisting video that we've been hyping up for, how long has it been? Weeks? Like a month? It's good to get it all off the chest.
Just kept getting pushed back.
Yeah, it did, man. Because every time we thought about doing it, it was like, oh, maybe the FAQ is coming out. We should do a video about that. And then it was like, oh, people keep requesting we do, like how to build a list and how to counter certain things. And we just kept pushing it back and back and back. And I'm not happy it's
I'm glad
over.
it materialized finally. Yeah.
I'm glad we got to do it. Yeah, because we kept opening up polls to our patrons and being like, hey, which video do you guys want to see next? And like nobody voted for this one. Like we're the only ones who want to do it. But coming up, we've got some stuff that people are going to like, I think. We have a new series coming, which I'm calling How to Counter Everything. And it's going to be a series because I thought I'd make like one video and talk about like every common meta threat right now in the tournament scene. And then I started looking at how many lists I wanted to include. And I'm like, okay, yeah, it's going to be a long video. It's going to be like 3 hours, but we've done long videos. It's not a big deal. And then I started looking into like how much detail I actually wanted to put into these videos. And I'm like, there's no way this has to be like a series, like a Netflix mini series, like this is huge. We've already got the first one drafted. It's going to be, should I tell them which one it is?
No.
Okay. It's going to be a surprise. We've got it drafted. I can say that it recently placed very well in tournaments, so I think it's going to be very relevant. I'm really excited about this series because I like talking about how to beat certain things. So we've got that coming, and I'm still working on the video for Stormcast as coalition units in Cities of Sigmar. Spoiler: Living City is disgusting, and not just because of fulminators, deep strike charging. There's a lot of good stuff in Cities of Sigmar. We also have our first live stream coming up December 2nd, 9 p.m. Eastern. It's already posted on YouTube, so check it out. You can hit that little button there, and it'll tell you, give you a reminder. I don't know how YouTube works. I'm new to all this, so yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that, like being able to discuss actual tournaments and how we play them.
Yeah, Morganic and I will both be off of fresh off of some tournaments then. So,
And I can finally start putting my thoughts together about how I want our battle reports to turn out. I have a specific vision in mind, things that I really want to put into them that I think are lacking from the space. So we'll talk all about that during our live stream. So feel free to tune in. And if you can't do it because you're asleep, because you live in an inferior time zone, then check it out the next day because the VOD will be posted immediately.
On the hobby side of things, we still have our hangouts every week for different time zones. So North America, we got you covered on Wednesday evenings, Saturday afternoons for you lovely European folk, and then Sunday afternoons for the Aussies. Come hang out. It's a good time.
Yeah, we just do them in Discord, so check the video description and you can find a link to our Discord. Jump in there and come hang out. We just paint models and shoot the shit.
Yeah, actually, a lot of the stuff we talked about today was discussed in some point or another during our hobby hangouts with the community. So,
yep. I've had to bite my tongue a lot because anytime people think of ideas, I'm like, oh, we've got this great one coming up in the wishlisting video. Just wait. But I wanted to try to hold on to as many ideas as I could. Battle reports, as I just mentioned, I have a specific vision, and we're going to start talking about them during the live stream on December 2nd. And we're hoping to get the first one out after Christmas. I'm not sure exactly when, because with American Thanksgiving and the holidays and New Year's and everything coming up, it's getting hectic. So after Christmas is what we're promising, and I mean technically after Christmas until the end of time is, that's a time period that my promise would fall under, but not that long after Christmas, maybe January sometime. To facilitate that, consider supporting us on Patreon or Subscribestar. We're using all the revenue from this to supplement the cost of very expensive audio and visual equipment that we need for this. We've finished renovating my basement so that we have a space to play all the time that is not going to get interrupted by viruses of indeterminate origin. And we're looking on feedback for what you guys want to see if you do support us. So let us know what you want. We have some ideas kicking around. We want to really give back to you guys because we really do appreciate what we're getting. We do this as a hobby, and we want to keep doing it. And your support allows us to justify the time we spend doing this instead of painting our models, for example.
Yeah.
And to that end, we got some new patrons, and we'd like to thank you so much. Champosaurus Lipa, Marcus Pfeffercorn, Ryan Jones, Nick Riley, Pavel Raman, Marcus LT, Spartan 12706, Andre Menendez, Red Rum Mage, Len Tyke, Colic, Grogs, Hot Bear, Bulka, Water Frogs, Rending, Combat, Tim Anderson, Neckrith, Nick Barber, Dignica, Jack Geiger, Jace, Kibitson, Ungrist Charger, Standwise, Reaper Time, Freda, Mark Knight, and Dungeon Master. Thank you so much for your support. We hope to keep the quality of content to keep you guys with us, and we appreciate everything, just like your enthusiasm in watching and listening to our ramblings.
Yeah, that
Thank
list
you
of
to
supporters.
everybody who's. I just wanted to say thank you to everybody who's actually subscribing right now. This is actually our first video after hitting 1,000 subs, so yeah.
Yeah, hitting 1,000 was great. I went out with my fiance and I bought a little cake to celebrate. It was a stupid little thing, but no, it means a lot to us that you guys are really enjoying this content, that you're finding it interesting and entertaining, hopefully entertaining and hopefully interesting. Yeah, thanks a lot, guys. We'll see you in the next one.
See you guys.